There we go, I'm pressing the wrong button, so we are starting off well, aren't we? Good evening, everyone. I'm going to hand over to Reverend Sarah to say prayers. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So let us pray. So as always, we start this time together acknowledging our differences, our politics, our views and our religious beliefs, and celebrate our common goals as members of this diverse borough of Hertsmere, to seek equality, equity, dignity and justice for all those in our care. We pray that this room, the hard-working and dedicated people who inhabit it, may reflect the desire for peace that we long for in the greater world. That as debate takes place, we may disagree well, with compassion and respect, that we may listen to each other with open hearts and minds. At this time, we remember that not everyone in the world has the privilege of debate and democracy, and in particularly as we approach International Women's Day next week, we remember all those women and girls of Afghanistan and all those who live in oppression and fear. We give thanks that we are a free country with freedom of speech. We pray that we may never take that for granted. And we end with a blessing. May the Lord bless us and keep us, make his face to shine upon us, be gracious to us now and forever. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening. Can I welcome everyone to this meeting of Hertsmere Borough Council, including those in the public gallery and watching online. My name is Councillor Richard Butler and I am the Mayor of Hertsmere and I will be chairing this meeting this night. Before we continue, please may I ask everyone to make sure your mobile phone is turned off or switched to silent. The fire evacuation procedure. On hearing the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately using the nearest exits. There is an exit at the rear of the chamber and both sides of the chamber at the front here. Do not under any circumstances use the lift. The assembly point is in the civic car park in the area next to the roundabout. You should not re-enter the building until it is safe to do so. The first order of business tonight for the council is agenda item 1, apologies. I do actually have one apologies tonight now, which is from Councillor Nichols. Are there any other apologies, please? Councillor Clarkson might be late. Okay, thank you. So Councillor Clarkson might be late for the minutes. You will know, members, that robust but civil debate is the essence of democracy. The respectful conduct in the chamber is key importance to the good reputation of our council. I'll be keen to ensure that debate is civil and timely throughout this evening and would ask you to support and respect this. As before, we'll be using the electronic voting system. This has been tested. Please press it once and the button will highlight showing which way you have voted and stop flashing. It takes a second for the screen to catch up. Councillors, can you also please remember to switch off your microphone and, like myself, press the right button to push to talk tonight. This allows the webcast camera to automatically move to the next speaker. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest to declare, please? Councillor Cohen.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Under item 1C, I rise to, under Constitution item 13C, to formally request that item 11 be deferred.
Okay, do you have a...
I have a speech to make as well about it.
Okay, do you have a second for your...
Yes, I'd like to rise to second the proposal and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, my understanding is this is a procedural motion and it is a vote without debate. So in that case, members, how do you wish to vote? So can we put it on the system, Alan? You're going to be, basically, the Conservative group have asked to adjourn, sorry, can you just repeat that? Adjourn the item 11, defer item 11, wasn't it, on the agenda, so.
So agenda item 11
Yeah,
be deferred.
deferred, yeah. So just, are you putting it on the, yeah, it's ready to go? So, members, you'll be able to vote on the meeting, so for, against and abstain. Thank you. So it's Sarah Hodgson-Jones, Alf Collins, and Councillor Newmark as well.
It won't
Okay,
take it.
It's okay. What I'll do, members, I've got the numbers in front of me at the moment, so I'll go down the list that I've got. So Councillor Hodgson-Jones, Sarah Hodgson-Jones, please. How would you vote, please? So, yes, okay, so that'll be at the moment. Right, okay, thank you. Councillor Nicholson isn't here. Councillor Alpha Collins, how do you please vote? And you against? Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Clarkson's not here. Councillor Newmark, how do you intend to vote, please?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I think it's important that the voting system is working correctly. I believe it's important the voting system is working correctly. I specifically asked that it be tested before the meeting. It's unacceptable that members are able to cast their vote electronically and have it recorded properly. Mr. Mayor, please could you liaise with officers and ensure that for the remainder of the meeting, the voting system is operating correctly. It's unacceptable on a night as important as budget night tonight.
I do take that on board, Councillor Newmark. Thank you. 1 second, please. Yes, sorry, Councillor Collins. Yeah, no, it's fine. But thank you, Councillor Collins. We're gonna. I've got the numbers in front of me, and with Councillor Hodgson-Jones, who's Sarah Hodgson-Jones. Apologies. She's indicated how she would vote. That would be yes to defer the item. So that would give that number 16. I've got 3 abstentions, and with Councillor Newmark and Councillor Collins saying no, that would be 18. So that means the item would not be deferred and it would still carry on the agenda. So members will carry on with the agenda as put for tonight. Thank you. Right, okay, so agenda item 3.
Do you want to adjourn to?
Yeah, okay, members, I've had some advice. Would you like me to adjourn the meeting so we can test the voting system for 5 minutes? Yeah, is that agreed with everyone? Agreed. Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes while we test it. We can do that, yes. So you have 5 minutes. Just press it once and keep calm. Yeah, I've got that on my cufflinks, don't worry. Right, webcast, everything. Right, okay. Let's try again. Agenda item 3. Yes, Councillor Wright, please.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think we were on item 2, weren't we? Declarations of interest.
Right, I'm keen to move on. You see, Councillor Wright. Okay, declarations of interest.
We're not keen to see you move on. We like you exactly where you are, and
Okay,
no
fantastic.
one can do so.
Do you have a declaration
yes,
to declare?
as we know. Some of us know. I'd like to declare an interest, and other pecuniary interest as a council director appointee of Elstree Studios, because it is possible during the debate, particularly on budget night, that it could come up, and I'd rather not be stopping and starting later on, so it's best just to register it now.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Councillor Sullivan, and then I'll take.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest as an employee of Inspiral and will not take part in the debate or speak on item 10, Treasury Management Strategy Statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clapper. I'm coming, don't worry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd also like to declare the same interest as Councillor Bright, as I'm also a council-appointed director of Elstree Studios.
Thank you, Councillor Clapper. Councillor Paul-Jones, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare another peculiar interest in respect of the agenda items on the budget, as I'm a council-appointed director of HDL, but I have sought and received a dispensation from the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Councillor Allen, please.
I'll declare the same interest as a council-appointed director of Elstree Film Studios.
Thank you, Councillor Myers.
Yeah, I would like to, same interest, council-appointed director of Elstree Film Studios.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Newmark.
Yeah, well, seeing as everybody else has, I'll declare the same interest, but I believe it's unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, Councillor Shenton. Thank you, Councillor Shenton, but please may I remind you to turn your mic on next time, but he has declared an interest for the record and the minutes. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, thank you, members. In that case, we'll move on to agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting of the Council held on the 22nd of January 2025. These have been circulated. There can be no debate on the minutes, only accuracy. May I put this as an accurate agenda and sign them, please? Is that all right? Thank you. Agenda item 4, announcement by the Mayor. It's been barely a month since we last met, as well as the usual collections of events, with everything from talented local theatre groups to orchestras. I have had the privilege to help judge the Civic Awards. This has been an incredible showcase of the work done by both groups and organisations in Hertsmere, and also may I just say thank you to Woodlands Primary School for having me quizzed and questioned by Year 5 for over an hour of questioning, which was some task, and I'm sure previous mayors who have undergone that has enjoyed it as much as I did, so thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 5 and 8, 5 to 8 joint debate. So members, I've spoken with the group leaders and we will be holding a joint debate on item 5 to 8 of the agenda. These are 5, pay policy statement for 2025 to 2026, 6, setting the revenue budget for 2025 to 2026, 7, setting the capital budget for 2024/25 to 2027/28. And finally, 8, council tax setting and collection fund levies 2025 to 2026. This is because the budget, both capital and revenue, including staff pay and the resulting levies, are very much independent. We will be giving 15 minutes to each party spokesman, or person rather, on the budget, and then any member who wishes to speak will be given 3 minutes each. Councillor Shenton will then have 5 minutes to sum up, and we will then take each of the votes separately. Does that make sense? Yes? Fantastic. In that case, members, I will just move on to take that. So I will, just give me a second because these papers are slightly different. Councillor Shenton, I call on you to speak. Yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess that every year the portfolio holder announces that this has been an extremely difficult year to balance the council's finances. Well, this year is no exception, although in this case it comes from the head of finance too. The head of finance and the team, as always, have put in a huge amount of work to prepare this budget. It has been especially difficult this year with some exceptional challenges. But as ever, they have risen to these challenges, for which I, and I think the whole council, are deeply appreciative. I should also extend my appreciation to those many councillors who have scrutinised this budget and made helpful observations at a series of meetings. Tonight's is a very long agenda, and it has been agreed that I should propose items 5, 6, 7 and 8 in a single speech. Each recommendation will be taken separately, of course. The first agenda item I wish to propose is item 5, to confirm the pay policy statement. More than half of the council's spending goes on salaries, so this is clearly crucial to the rest of the agenda. The recommendations of the Personnel Committee, held on the 3rd of February, were considered by the Cabinet on the 12th of February and are incorporated into the budget. Staff were extensively consulted on the proposed pay award through January of this year, and the outcome of those consultations referred to the Personnel Committee. Pay awards by the county and other boroughs in Hertfordshire averaged 3%, one at 2.5%, one at 3.5%, and the rest at 3%. The pay award, after lengthy debate, the pay award for 25-26 was agreed by the Personnel Committee as 3%. This was noted by Cabinet and used in the forthcoming calculation of budgets. The Council has a long-standing plan to reduce its dependence on government funding, and successive governments have duly obliged by cutting their support. Last year, the government underfunded this council by £100,000 by deliberately overstating the number of properties, knowing full well that growth was virtually flat. This year, in the autumn statement, the government promised that local authorities would be fully compensated for the rise in employers' national insurance contribution, but has instead shortchanged us by £262,000. Everything changes and everything stays the same. The increase in core spending power under the final settlement has actually reduced to 22,000 or 0.16%, compared with the 3.2% uplift indicated in the autumn statement. Inflation has fallen over the last year. Government funding uses September's CPI, which was 1.7%. Since then, though, inflation has risen and the most recent CPI is 3%. I'm proposing increasing the net budget requirement for 25-26 to £14.559 million, which represents an increase of 5.4% on this year. This includes a pay award of 3%. The number of homes in the borough has grown by 0.35% this year, which is 0.35% higher than last year. Hertsmere has again been part of the business rate pooling mechanism with Hertfordshire County and a couple of other district councils, which this year is predicted to benefit the council by 1.1 million. It is likely that beyond the funding reforms planned for 25-26, pooling will not continue and would unlikely be viable if it did. As one-off funding, this does not appear in the revenue budget. The government has provided two new funding sources, an increase to homelessness prevention grant and extended producer responsibility. The homelessness prevention grant is ring-fenced funding to be spent, as the name suggests, on preventing homelessness, including temporary accommodation. It has risen from 668,000 in 24-5 by 469,000 to 1.137 million for 25-26. At least 49% of this grant must be spent on prevention. This council has always placed a high priority on preventing homelessness and will exceed the 1.137 million. For 2025-26, Hertsmere's estimated spend on homelessness prevention is 1.193 million. Of that, we plan to spend 53% on prevention, the bulk of the remainder being spent on temporary accommodation. The terms of this grant are tightly drawn, and I do not for a moment believe it is the government's intention that additional funding is to be added to existing funding. It is intended to ensure that those councils that are not adequately funding homelessness prevention already are required and enabled to do so. Extended producer responsibility is a very welcome scheme to ensure that manufacturers who produce packaging are charged for its disposal. The main aim of the scheme is to incentivise producers to minimise waste by only creating what is really necessary. My strong expectation is that manufacturers who confidently told us that their packaging was absolutely essential suddenly find ways to reduce it. This, of course, means that the extended producer responsibility grant will fall over time, but so too will the cost to us of disposing of it. In 2025-26, there will be some additional cost to the Council for disposing of waste, as we are required to implement simpler recycling. But as with homelessness prevention, this Council already does much of what is being asked of it. Hertsmere's allocation is guaranteed to be at least 1.096 million. This funding is not ring-fenced, and this budget proposes using 594,000 of the EPR funding to contribute towards the net budget requirement. Elstree Film Studios continues to have a very significant impact on the Council's finances, but I'm confident that we have turned the corner, and this year's budget shows the greatest negative impact. I think resolving the studio's issues has shown the Council working at its best. Officers, notably the heads of legal, finance and asset management, plus of course the chief executive, have put in an enormous amount of work to bring the threat of litigation to a satisfactory conclusion. I should also give credit to Councillors Abhishek Sachdev and Lucy Selby for their sterling work, and of course to the Council leader, Councillor Newmark. We heard a lot of noise and seemingly contradictory legal opinion, but Councillor Newmark showed great skill and judgment, cutting through the noise and driving the process to a successful and timely conclusion. We do have to ask ourselves, how do we get into this position where the remediation of a chronic problem had to be dealt with as an emergency? The Council would always have had to spend huge amounts to fix stages 7, 8 and 9, but we need to ask the question what the difference would have been had the work been part of planned maintenance programme many years ago. To recap, the roof was decades past its design life and showing clear signs of collapse to anything more thorough than a cursory inspection from the ground. The walls contained asbestos, as was normal for buildings of that era, but not acceptable now unless it is properly encapsulated. Moreover, if this had been planned, and it could have been, there wouldn't have been the need to trash any of the tenants' expensive equipment or to terminate their lease. We could have safely encapsulated the asbestos and supported the roof and avoided the threat of litigation. This council inherited a costly problem from its predecessor. It's not a minor footnote to the accounts. It is of overwhelming consequence to this year's budget, costing us millions of pounds. The Council is required to consider the Medium-Term Financial Plan, MFTP. We quite obviously live in interesting times, and predicting the future seems to me to be especially difficult at the moment. Table 3 on page 22 of the order paper shows the revised MTFP. This shows a deficit of 225k in 2026-27, rising to 667k in 28-29. These amounts represent 0.6% and 1.8% respectively of the budget and are less than I reported last year for the equivalent time frame. However, behind these numbers lie considerable uncertainty, not least of which is the government's declared intention of putting all councils into unitary authorities by the end of the current Parliament. I'm sure not the only councillor who expects to be a member of Hertsmere's final council. I have outlined the revenue budget requirements, so now we need to address paying for it. It is, of course, a requirement of all councils that we produce a balanced budget. The government has determined that increases to council tax for district councils should be less than 3%, which is the same as last year. To charge above this requires a referendum. I'm confident we do not need to levy more than 3%, and certain that we do not need to pay for a referendum. Increases for county and unitary authorities must be at least 5%, and must be no more than 5%, and police and crime commissioners 5.6%. Town and parish councils are not so constrained by government edicts. The rise amongst these councils varies from 4.28% in Shenley to 28.87% in Hertsmere Borough Wood. Just as last year, Hertsmere have the lowest increase of all the precepting bodies. It's surely no coincidence that the only council that has members of my party in the administration offers the best value for money. So, for a Band D property, for non-parished areas, such as Bushy, Hertsmere's share is 9%, the police 12%, and Herts County Council 79%. For Aldenham, the most expensive parish, the shares are 14, 11 and 75. The full details of the proposed increases are included in Appendix A of the report, which is on page 185 of the order paper. Moving on to the capital budget, as members are aware, the capital programme is a rolling one, and this report is a snapshot of the current position. New projects will almost certainly be added to the programme through the year. After a busy year in 2024-25, there have been no new recommendations from the Capital Strategy Group to the Asset Management Panel. Projects with a value of 13.733 million have been reprofiled to this year, and the Disabled Facilities Grant schemes put into future years. Finally, capital projects with a combined value of 7.085 million, entirely for work on Elstree Film Studios, have been removed by the programme. And finally, we are required by law to set the budget by the 11th of March, and this proposal recommends that we increase the Hertsmere's share of the council tax by 2.99%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Councillor Shenton, can I just ask you to turn off your microphone? Thank you. No, that's not a problem. Thank you. Members, before we actually go into the other party spokespersons, I formally have to invite seconders to each of the items. So I need a seconder to agenda item 5, decision report pay policy statement for 2025 to 26. It's been moved by Councillor Shenton, but I formally need a seconder for that item, please. Thank you. Councillor Chalice.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm pleased to speak in support of this budget, which reflects not just our ambitions for Hertsmere, but also the hard work and dedication of so many people.
I was just asking you to second it for the moment.
Sorry,
you can speak in a minute. It's fine. It's just formal. Sorry, because we're taking it as one debate. It's not a problem. It's fine.
Sorry, I do apologise.
It's always
Mr. Mayor.
hard to be the
I'm
first
sorry,
one.
it was that pause there. It was me thinking, I just need to second this. So yes,
It's fine.
I second
It's
this.
fine.
Thank you. And
It's
I will
seconded.
reserve my
Thank
right
you.
to speak for something else.
Thank you, Councillor Chalice. Okay, so agenda item 6, decision report, setting the revenue budget for 2025 to 26. It's been moved by Councillor Shenton. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Newman. That's formally seconded. Agenda item 7, decision report, setting the capital budget for 2024 to 25, and then 2027 to 28. It's been moved formally by Councillor Shenton. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Newmark. And agenda item 8, decision report for council tax setting and collection funds levies 2025 to 26. It's been formally moved by Councillor Shenton. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Newmark, thank you. Members, this now is open for debate, and I will now call upon, I have two spokespersons from the Labour group and the Conservative group. Who wants to go first? Yep, Councillor Newmark.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, please don't start the clock. My understanding of the rules for this part of the debate is that spokespeople for groups can elect to speak at any point in the debate. And
You're absolutely right. I do apologise, Councillor Newmark. That was agreed at the Mayor's briefing as well, so apologies for that. So in that case, members, unless the Conservative group spokesperson wants to speak now, the item is open for debate. So, members, who would like to start? Councillor Hodgson-Jones, please. Thank you, Paul Hodgson-Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As some members will know, I joined this council in May 2007. There are only 3 members of the chamber who've been here longer than I. At that time, Bambi was in number 10, and a dura son of the manse, who always talked about prudence but never delivered prudence, was the Chancellor. And the government used to regularly impose new burdens on the council without funding. Roll forward 17 years, and we have a new man in number 10, who's not a pat on Bambi, and a new Chancellor who seems to be totally inept and incompetent. And as a result, we have a government that is imposing new burdens on the council, not providing the funding, and has used estimates and forecasts that are already well out of date. And the most incongruous of these is that the funding settlement is based on a CPI figure of 1.7%, but the projected inflation rate was higher than that and has already hit 3% this month. So the funding increase doesn't even start to cover inflation before you start on all of the things that the Chancellor has imposed upon us, like NI increases, business rate increases, and all of the associated things. So how do we get to ourselves to a balanced budget? It's hard work. But that's not the main area of the budget papers I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about the capital budget. We've heard that the capital budget is basically 45 million over the period from 2024 to 2027. But 30 million of that is either already spent or underway for projects that commenced in 2024. And the 13 million that we see in 2025-26 includes 12 million of slippage from 23-24. So where is the planning for future investment in our borough? Where is the planning for future investment to support all of the grandiloquent things that came out in the administration's plans? The answer is, this is either incompetence or a complete lack of imagination. I don't know which it is, but what I do know is that when parts of the council put forward proposals for new investment, we get told that it can't be funded and there's no room for it. And yet, on the agenda, we have other items later.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Hodgson-Jones. Your time is up. Thank you. I've got next on the speaker, Councillor Clapper, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise today to object to this administration's revenue budget, which once again proves how out of touch Labour and the Liberal Democrats are with the needs of our residents and businesses. As the former portfolio holder for economic development, I know firsthand just how vital it is to nurture and support thriving high streets. This council should be making it easier for people to visit, shop and spend, not pricing people out. The simplest and most effective way to bring people to the high street is with free parking. Mary Portas, the Queen of Shops, told the government that plentiful free car parking in town centres is vital for revitalising England's struggling high streets. Yet this budget does the complete opposite. £448,000 to be spent on upgrading parking machines, an extra £18,000 on parking enforcement. Why? That's more money taken from residents and less money for every business on those high streets. And what do people get in return? Higher costs, crumbling car parks, and a council that's actively and openly driving people away from our high streets. Take Newbury's car park in Radlett. It now costs £1.15 to park for an hour. A pint of milk costs just 85p. Where's the sense in that? People are driving just a few minutes down the road to the boulevard in Boreham Wood, where parking is free and easier. This is the real cost of our council's policies, the cost to our residents, the cost to our businesses, and the cost to our growth. And don't just take my word for it. The council's own geo-data proves it. Radlett High Street has not recovered to pre-pandemic levels, footfall levels, unlike Boreham Wood or Potters Bar, for the specific reason that I alluded to. People are abandoning high streets where it costs too much to park. And the knock-on effects are clear. Thanks to this administration's rising fees, Alden Parish Council can no longer afford to subsidise free parking for the first hour. This is a direct hit on local businesses and on residents. Now, you claim to be an enterprising council. In fact, section 5.1 of your own capital strategy states that a key priority is to commit to supporting local businesses. Yet your actions say the opposite. It seems that we not only have an anti-growth Labour government, but we have an anti-growth council here too. Frustratingly, this Labour Liberal Democrat coalition either isn't listening or doesn't understand. They're making it increasingly prohibitive for people to be able to support their local high streets. Mr. Mayor and members, I cannot make it clearer than to say this is the wrong budget for Hertsmere. It fails our residents, it fails our businesses, and it fails our high streets. I urge this administration to rethink its priorities before the damage is made worse still. I urge you to support our high streets and support our businesses, because when our businesses thrive, our economy and our community thrives. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Councillor Clapham. I've already had some people catch my eye while the debate's been going on, so Councillor Quilty, you're up next. Thank you. Councillor Quilty, can you turn your mic on, please? No,
sorry,
I'll give you 3 seconds more.
I apologise about that. Mr Mayor, this week I had the opportunity to meet with several shopkeepers in Bushy Village, and they expressed a pressing concern regarding the car parking charges, the same as Councillor Clapper has just said, included in this current budget. They strongly emphasised that without a minimum of 30 minutes of free parking, we are likely to continue to witness the significant drop in footfall, threatening the very existence of many shops in Bushy Village. Therefore, I respectfully urge my colleagues in the Liberal Democrat Party to join with me in supporting our shopkeepers and residents by advocating for a period of complimentary free parking. The solution is straightforward. By rejecting the proposed budget, we can facilitate the implementation of free parking in our car parks for a limited period in Bushy. Our local businesses are vital to the Bushy community, and we must take action now to ensure their survival. I call upon Bushy, and I do this again, Liberal Democrat councillors, to recognise the importance of the issue and to act promptly. If voting against this budget feels like a challenge or maybe a step too far, I urge you to consider to abstain as a sign of your commitment for the residents and their needs. Let us work together. Let's ensure the vitality of Bushy shops continues. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. I have next who have indicated to speak to me, Councillor Green, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. What struck me about what we heard originally this evening is about the cost of what it is to be homeless. And it's so much more than money. But as we're discussing the budget, I think it's important that we discuss how we should be proud of how we support people in our borough who are homeless. Because, you know, London spends £4 million a day housing people who have nowhere to live. And we spend a lot less than that, but the homeless prevention team work with an applicant to prevent them being homeless up to 56 days before it happens. We all do what we can to prevent the person becoming homeless. Some households are eligible for temporary accommodation if the council can't prevent their homelessness. And from the 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of January 2025, the council had 1,330 homeless approaches. That's 150 a month. As of February 24th this year, the council has 113 households in temporary accommodation. But because we lack social housing and affordable rented homes, this means they can be there for years. Due to the resources council commits, it prevents homelessness, and actually the number of people presenting has decreased. And so I'm very proud that this budget includes, above and beyond what the government expect of us, in order to help those who have nowhere to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I have Councillor Gray next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Balancing the budget is a challenge every year, but this year has been especially tough. I want to take a moment to thank our incredible finance team for all their hard work in pulling this together, and special thanks to my colleague, Councillor Shenton, for his diligence and thoughtful approach. Looking at the budget through the lens of my portfolio, I'm delighted to confirm there'll be no reductions in funding for any of my areas. This means that we continue the fantastic work we've been doing in supporting businesses, growing the economy, developing skills and community safety here in Hertsmere. One key highlight is Generation Hertsmere, which saw approximately 600 students attend last year with great feedback from schools and businesses alike. And Generation Hertsmere 2025 will return on the 5th of November, bigger and better than ever. Our creative forums continue to thrive, connecting local businesses with experts in areas of IT, AI and sustainable finance. Our skills panel, working with partners, has already led to new accredited courses and apprenticeships addressing the key skills shortages in Hertsmere. We're also making strides in supporting local businesses through networking events, direct engagements and initiatives like Fit to Bid programmes. Our commitment to the creative industries is stronger than ever, highlighting filming opportunities in the borough, streamlining the process of filming in the borough and promotion through a new upcoming video campaign. And finally, we remain focused on supporting residents, particularly those aged over 45, to get back into work. Through a set of tailored advice job searches and skills programmes, this year alone over 300 people have gained employment. Community safety is a top priority, and we're taking real action to protect our residents. We're expanding the work we're doing to tackle the cases of cuckooing in our borough, ensuring vulnerable people are safeguarded. I want to thank Councillor Nicholas for her excellent leadership in the fight against violence against women and girls, and her work as a member champion is making a real difference. We'll continue our efforts to combat domestic abuse and support survivors, whilst also raising awareness around things like substance misuse, and we're working closely with the police to address the graffiti issues on Shenley Road to keep our public spaces safe and welcoming. This budget allows us to keep delivering real impact for our communities, strengthening our economies and ensuring Hertsmere remains a place of opportunity for all. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. I have Councillor Myers next, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank our colleague, Councillor Shenton, and our fantastic finance team for delivering a balanced budget in the most difficult of circumstances. Despite the challenges, this budget protects every service our residents expect and need, without cuts anywhere in our programme. We're not just maintaining services, we're investing and improving. Our parks and green spaces are a great example. We're delivering over £1 million of investment in King George's Recreation Ground in Bushy, with similar level coming to Meadow Park in Boreham Wood. Play areas in Potters Bar, Bushy and Boreham Wood will also see upgrades. And we've met our 10,000 tree target once again. To build on this, we're introducing a new tree strategy and tree and hedgerow strategy, just for you, Mr Mayor, to support our growing green spaces. We're also changing how we work, increasing opportunities for volunteers, friends groups and community-led projects. At the next Cabinet meeting, we'll bring forward plans for community skips and outline how we're partnering with sports clubs to deliver better pitches, buildings and facilities by securing external funding. On parking, we continue to take a fair and balanced approach. We design, administer and enforce parking schemes to ensure compliance, but not to raise revenue. Residential parking permits remain unchanged, and we've only applied the most modest inflationary increase to pay and display charges. We've delivered significant resident-led parking reviews and continue to offer excellent value, not just for Hertsmere, but also for Three Rivers, who pay us to provide their parking services. This budget is responsible, ambitious and forward-thinking. It protects our key services while delivering real investment in our communities, and I am very proud to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. I have Councillor Bright next, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mayor. Can I first of all offer my thanks to Councillor Shenton? It's not difficult. I mean, I've sat in this since 1999 and sat through 26, 27 budgets. It is not easy, particularly for the portfolio holder. And I know how much time and effort has gone in with you and with officers to bring this forward. We don't have to agree on everything in order for me to understand how much work that you personally have put into this. Tonight, I suppose I just want to say a few things about changing minds, as in being able to change your mind. And actually, it's not a weakness, it's actually a strength. The Liberal Democrats in Harpenden, actually run Harpenden, have done it over their parking. They realised that by charging for parking outside shops, it was going to cause a problem to local businesses, and they recently changed their minds and decided actually not to, and they're in charge of their own council. And I think the points made by both Councillor Clapper and by Councillor Quilty for Radlett and Bushy are absolutely right. I've seen the cars coming from Radlett shooting down into Bournemouth to try and get free parking for a couple of hours, a few hours up at the retail park. I think the administration needs to change their minds on this. Changing minds, let's have, if we have to have community enforcement officers, we would have rather had police community support officers, Bobbies on the beat, but if we have to have them, let's change our minds and let's actually get them able to enforce anything. At the moment they've got the word enforcement in there, but they're not allowed to, they've got no legal powers to enforce. So let's see if we can do that. And then finally, but at a bit more length, of the studios. Councillor Shenton made a very, very good point about the studios and the history of the studios and why it was that maintenance wasn't put forward before by the very professional, if I may say, long-term senior officers who had 40 years of experience in the business, who had had surveys done and who led a board, which included independent non-executive members as it does now, but we were never told of these issues. We were always told everything's fine, everything's all right. Why would we question, as mere councillors, someone who's got 40 years experience and other senior officers? So we have to learn that lesson. We have to realise that we don't have necessarily the right just to sit back and do nothing. We have to actually speak up. And I spoke up at this council just under 2 years ago when we were rushing forward to knock down Studios 7, 8 and 9. Remember, we have to do it. We have to do it now. It's like 45 minutes. What is it like? We've got weapons of mass destruction. It's the dodgy dossier. We've got to do it now. And we had the same thing with the studios. But the thing was, we didn't have to knock them down. And I said we didn't have to knock them down. And we needed to wait. And we should have waited. Because 2 years later, we've done remedial work. And they're going to open. The same studios, stages are reopening in a few months' time. They haven't been knocked down. So we have to be able to say, okay, let's question, let's do the right thing. Don't rush, challenge, but make sure you take your time to do it. Because ultimately, we're all here for the same reason. We've only got 2, maybe 3 years left as a borough in the district. Let's see if we change a few minds, not be too entrenched, and do our best for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. I have Councillor Adechikaza next, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise especially in relation to item 6, because it hadn't escaped me that I hadn't adequately answered Councillor Morris's questions from last month. And if you recall, Councillor Morris, you did pose a question regarding licence fees and any changes to it. So tonight I can confirm, and considering the topic under discussion tonight, I think tonight is the best time to answer your question that you posed. So I can confirm tonight that that the fees and charges in relation to licensing will remain the same for the most part. However, there are increases in some, not all, in some charges and fees, but those increases amount to between 10 and 12 pounds increase, and this is in line with inflation. So I hope that adequately answers my question. Mr. Mayor, having looked at the figures again from a licensing perspective, I'm more than happy to back and recommend these numbers as part of the council's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kaza. I have next to speak Councillor Lambert, please.
Chris, that was hard work, but well done, although I don't quite agree with it all. Over the past 10 years, I have sat on or been chair of the Financial Monitors Panel, budget panels and scrutiny committees. Consequently, it would be difficult for me not to develop a feel for when the finances are going well and when they are heading for choppy water. The revenue and capital budgets are making me feel uneasy. It seems that we're invoking expenditure from an ideological perspective rather than a standpoint of benefit for residents or a financial return for the council. On page 31, item 6.2, the report acknowledges, as the council continues to invest in its capital programme, not only are investment balances reducing as earmarked reserves and developer contributions are utilised, where funding resources are not available to fund capital projects, any such spend needs to be funded through borrowing. The council does not currently have any external borrowing. It will, however, need to borrow for capital spend that has not been financed yet. On page 48, it acknowledges also that the Policy Scrutiny Committee on the 21st of January, there was concern by members on whether ring-fenced grants should be used to balance the budget. We're certainly a long way away from a nightmare scenario, but it does lead me to have concerns when usable reserves at the 1st of April 2023 were 62 million. By the 1st of April 24, they were 54 million. And by the 31st of March this year, they will be a shade under 40 million. This is not a good direction of travel. I'm not an accountant, but even I can see that this is not an improving situation in terms of money we have to invest for the long-term good of the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. I have Councillor Maxi Allen next, please.
I'll quote you from the couple of articles in the Watford Observer. Will parking charges kill bushy shops? And also another article in the Watford Observer, pay and display for bushy car parks. 2 car parks in Bushy will no longer be free after Hertsmere brought in a pay and display scheme. And they speak to shoppers and shopkeepers predicting disaster. Both those Watford Observer articles are from January 2009. It quotes a Bushy councillor who's a member of the administration who says, these parking charges are, to quote, a step in the right direction. That councillor was Seamus Kilty. And 16 years later, the shops and restaurants of Bushy High Road, where those car parks were, they survive. And he may like to stroll up and down the village until he finds a shopkeeper who he can wind up. But the reality is that on this side of the chamber, they were happy to take almost exactly the same amount of money from car parks as is the case today. And in an ideal world, everything would be free. But in reality, charging people to use a council asset is like it raining. It's not ideal, but it's a natural and inevitable way of things, and you will not change it, as you know full well.
Thank you. I have up next the Conservative spokesperson on this item, so Councillor Abedek Sakdev, please. And you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, firstly, thank you again to the finance team and Councillor Shenton for putting in the effort and the hard work for this budget. Any points of criticism that I have towards the budget are really directed towards Councillor Newmark, who of course orchestrates everything currently in this chamber. Now, look, Mr. Mayor, when we were running the administration, Councillor Newmark used to attack us for attempting to mismanage the finances. He used to blame the national government, etc., etc. Then, when his administration took over the running of this council, by deceiving residents, saying that they're going to be refunding them their council tax, producing a local plan within 6 months, etc., etc. But let's just forget about that. So they took over. Then they still continue to blame the National Conservative government. So now, Mr. Mayor, there is simply nowhere left for Councillor Newmark to hide. There is a National Labour government, and his administration has been in power for a couple of years. There is simply nowhere to hide, and it is evident today in the papers we see before us. Now, firstly, turning towards the kind of pay statement, all I'd simply say here is our group actually pushed for a 3.5% increase, both at Cabinet and personnel. This was refused, noting that, of course, this 3% that's in the pay policy actually gives no real pay rise to staff at all, because as Councillor Hodgson-Jones pointed out earlier, inflation is currently running at 3%. So again, this administration is not giving any pay rise to our hard-working staff at all. Now, I don't need to go into the small details about the other areas of financial mismanagement that have been going on. We've talked about the flip-flopping before about council tax refunds, rebates. I get confused about that. And let's not even talk about the green bins. The amount of WhatsApps that I've had even from residents in my area in Potters Bar about understanding how these new charges work, what these new bins mean, how do these new collections mean. It is an absolute shambles there. But what we really need to talk about is some of the kind of larger issues within this budget. For example, as Councillor Lambert was talking about, the mismanagement and misuse of these funds and grants that have been given to the council. For example, you know, the 430 odd K that's been given for homelessness. Now, just in fact earlier this week, the Financial Times wrote about how this is a growing issue. And in fact, emergency accommodation was an expensive solution that doesn't address the root cause of homelessness. So the government's actually pledged £1 billion nationally to try to address the root causes of this, and yet we're using it to simply balance the budget. Similarly, we've been given nearly £600,000 for effectively kind of waste management and recycling. It's called the extended producer subsidy. But now we should be really using that to invest towards our the capital costs of future recycling lorries, for example. Again, not just to simply balance the budget. Now look at the, in terms of sort of absolutely nowhere for Councillor Newmark to hide here when he's talking about a national government here. Look at what Rachel Reeves delivered in the budget, in the autumn budget last year. An absolute shambles when it comes to the national insurance increase. Now again, Councillor Newmark may argue, well, this has nothing to do with us, this is just national government. But actually, it does affect us here. Because, for example, the British Retail Consortium warned that actually 160,000 jobs across the country could be lost because of extra labour charges. Now, the impact here is absolutely relevant because there is a approximately £400,000 cost for us from national insurance increases, where we're only reimbursed a certain amount of this, meaning that we've still got a shortfall of nearly £260,000. This was a direct, absolutely explicit cost of the National Labour government. There is simply nowhere for Councillor Newmark to hide here. Now, Mr. Mayor, let's talk about inflation. Again, Councillor Hodgson-Jones talked about how when the core spending the core spending was planned in December, inflation was running about 1.7%. But around that time, the effects of Rachel Reeves's budget hadn't really been felt. In fact, people were still trying to digest the volatility in the gilt market, but let's forget about that for now. The Bank of England themselves actually said the headline inflation now is going to rise more sharply, possibly rising to 3.7% in the third quarter of 2025. Now, one of your own members works for the Bank of England, so please do check the figures if you want to. This tax and spend approach from the national government is absolutely causing ripples across the country and, of course, in our local borough too. We now have the highest tax burden since 1993. Again, not my words. The Office for Budget Responsibility has said that there is absolutely genuine harm to our economic competitiveness being caused by this. Now, again, the government may say this is helping growth, but actually it is not helping growth because the OBR has actually said the budget does not significantly enhance economic growth over the next 5 years. Now, again, you might say, well, what does that have to do locally? There are parallels between the mismanagement of what the national government has done and what the local council here is proposing here tonight, such as with the Borough Regeneration plan, which I'll come on to shortly. Even our own professional advisors, as shown in the budget report from Link, are specifically talking about inflation being higher at every single level than at spring last year, which simply shows the damaging effect of Labour running anything to do with economic policy whatsoever. Another example of how it's directly affecting us is the Labour government announced specifically no council will lose funding. Such a bold, fantastic statement to make. However, the Chancellor can't get her sums right. She also didn't know how long she was at the Bank of England for or at HBOS for, but again, that's a separate issue. Perhaps we could ask Graham Alexander for that. In fact, she couldn't quite complete her expenses properly. Luckily, she's not running the country's finances. But it actually means that, but genuinely, what it actually means is we have lost approximately £420,000 of funding from the government. The government actually said we're going to be giving you a 3.2% increase. The actual result is 0.16%. I mean, these numbers aren't even rounding errors. It is an absolutely ridiculous, shambolic statement. Now, Councillor Lambert briefly talked about earlier about the cost of, the potential requirement for borrowing. Now, this is something quite concerning. The kind of spending plans that are being shown both in the capital budget by things like this Borough Regeneration plan are pointing significantly to the need for external borrowing. But this is a very, very worrying time to be borrowing from the external financial markets. PWLB rates are now 50 to 75 basis points higher than they were last year. It is the absolute worst time to be borrowing. But even if we're not looking to borrow, even just having the capital cost of those unfunded investments is very, very significant to our budget. We talk about reserves. Okay? In my budget of 22nd of February 2023, we left with reserves of approximately £60 million. Today, the reserves that Labour are presenting leave us with only £40-odd million of reserves. Now, some of this is beyond their control. It is related to Elstree Film Studios, but this only partly explains the reduction. At a time where we need to be so careful, is this the time to gamble so recklessly with our reserves, which once spent are very, very difficult to replenish? Now, Mr. Mayor, something which I don't absolutely say lightly is this. I've been a councillor here for 11 years now. I've been part of scrutiny, part of audit committee, I've chaired audit, and then I was also doing Councillor Shenton's role of managing the finances. But in my 11 years here, I have absolutely never had to take the unprecedented step of trying to go above our officers and indeed colleagues by actually writing to our auditor. And that is why this week I put my name to a letter actually writing to our auditor about the concern that I have here. Now, again, there is, I appreciate you may not have all necessarily had time to digest what's in this report at item number 11. It is about 130-odd pages long. But let me just point out a couple of key, very, very significant parts which absolutely terrify me. The financial viability concern raised by the council's own consultant is absolutely shocking. It's a company called Inner Circle. I had a look at them. They're not just some brand new sort of startup SME. They've been around for at least 10 years. They've done regeneration plans in Cornwall, Somerset, Liverpool, the London boroughs of Camden, Southwark, etc., etc. What they actually talk about is this. And I'm going to say this really, really slowly because this is genuinely shocking. In fact, I even had to check the numbers with Councillor Clapper here, just because I couldn't believe this. What they are saying is that the plans the council has put forward, or this Labour administration has put forward, is for a regeneration plan which will end up costing £860 million. But the actual value of the project and the land at the end will only be £780 million. And we don't need to be Rachel Reeves to understand that is a gap of £80 million. So we're talking about putting forward a scheme which even the estimates today talk about as a base case losing £80 million. That is why we have written to our auditors, and I very much hope they're listening tonight. To put this into context, like Councillor Hodgson-Jones was talking about the capital budget, the 3-year capital budget that we're looking to spend as a whole council is approximately £45 million over 3 years. Yet this is an £80 million gap that the council is looking for another hole for us to walk into. Even just the amount that they're requesting to look for tonight is about £200,000 of funding to take it to the next stage. That £200,000 is worth about 15% of the net budget. Where does it appear in the budget? I cannot see it. It is because they are hiding it. And they are hiding it because they are concerned. And that is why I didn't even bother writing to officers. We had to take the very serious step of going to the auditors. There is only one more step of escalation, in my opinion, above this, and I hope I don't have to use that. But let's see how things pan out. Mr. Mayor, the shocking lack of financial management has been laid bare here. It seems that the council, it seems that the Labour administration are indeed scared of this budget being scrutinised. How do I know this? Well, there was no member budget panel that we were invited to, the one that apparently took place in November last year. Similarly, the latest budget panel date simply says next to it TBC. You can look puzzled, Councillor Newmark, but it's in the papers. It says TBC. Now, how can a member budget planning date say TBC when tonight actually the council budget is being presented? It simply shows they are afraid of allowing anyone to scrutinise it. Now, we've talked about how Labour are damaging the economy nationally. We're talking about the effects it's had on our local area. We can still do something here tonight to stop the damage the Labour are causing our local area. We can stop this by voting against this item. I urge the more sensible members in this room, do not hide. Stick your head above the parapet. Some of you do have genuine financial expertise and experience. Councillor Prabhakar Kaza used to be a bank auditor. Councillor Alexander works for the Bank of England. Councillor Shah, you've been a financial advisor for 40 years. Let's stand up and make a point to vote against this revenue budget. I myself am FCA regulated and have been for 20 odd years. I have to vote against this budget. I can't in good conscience walk out of here and advise other councils on their debt structuring, advise many large PLCs on their debt and financial management if we're supporting a budget such as this. For all these reasons, I do urge you to vote against the revenue budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Abedek. I'm now moving on to Councillor Giorgio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council tax increase of 2.99% matches the latest UK inflation rate of around 3%. Median UK wages are projected to increase to 3.9% this year. Hertsmere is facing a recruitment challenge, as are many local authorities and companies in the borough. I'm pleased to note that the pay policy statement report, which the council looks to support, includes an at-inflation pay rise of 3% for all Hertsmere Borough Council staff. I'm also aware that some of our policies, such as around home working, are currently being reviewed to help us attract and retain staff. I would have liked to have seen the introduction of a car leasing scheme to reduce the requirement of a car allowance loan for senior leaders, but I'm pleased to see that our executive salaries are far below the Hutton Review of Fair Pay policy. Our chief executive pay ratio is 7.5, that of our lowest paid employee, and to me this seems to be fair. I'm also pleased to see that the mean and median gender pay gap is within a reasonable range. This reduces the risk that we could be found to be paying different genders unfairly. The draft revenue budget of around £14.5 million sets out an increase in our budget of 5.4%. Table 3 shows a small required budget savings and efficiency gain of around £225,000 per year, but this is a comparatively trivial amount of around 1.5%. This is an achievable target for our modernisation initiatives and may end up being paid by slippage in our capital spending, as those funds would continue to be invested for longer. The capital budget has also been revised to ensure that we have an ambitious but achievable set of projects to undertake. I therefore expect to see a large reduction in the total amount of slippage year on year. This council is ending the managed decline of our borough and investing to enable us to save into the future. This can be seen in Table 10, where we are seeing increases in our rental and investment income, and in the upcoming agenda item on High Street regeneration. I'm also pleased to see that more than double the number of people have responded to our budget survey this year than last, showing that more people are engaging with our digital engagement platforms. I therefore recommend that we approve these budget items tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. I now call on the Leader of the Council, Councillor Jeremy Newmark, and the Labour spokesperson for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I found the opposition lead spokesperson's opening comments fascinating. Councillor Sachdev, I recognise an anti-Semitic trope when I smell one. The Jewish leader of the council orchestrating the finances of the council, straight out of the protocols of the elders of Zion. Take yourself on. Take yourself.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. What's the point of order? 1 second, Councillor Newmark. 1 second.
When he sits down, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. Please give me your point of order, Councillor Newmark.
I will give you the point of order when the chamber is quiet. The point of order is, under 5.1, Council's Code of Conduct, 3.1, right, you must treat others with respect. There is no doubt whatsoever that Councillor Newmark's opening comments do just the opposite. He is angry for whatever reason he's entitled to be, but he's not entitled to insult it. I want that matter withdrawn, and I would like legal advice as to the comments he has made in a Part 1 meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, that wasn't a point of order, so I presume that I'm okay.
You haven't
to
actually
continue
given
with my
your
speech,
declaration
Mr. Mayor.
yet, because Councillor Newmark won't let you as mayor. Maybe he wants your job. He can't have it. He won't let you speak.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bright, everyone, just take a breather for a second. Hang on. Councillor Great, everyone, thank you. The Constitution has to be a point of order. Sorry, the point of order has to be open against the Constitution. That's what I've been informed. I take the advice given. I'm going to allow Councillor Newmark to start again, please, so we can actually get on with this debate. So can we restart the clock and get on with the debate, please? And carry
Mr.
on.
Mayor, sorry.
Thank you,
Can I
Mr. Mayor.
point of personal explanation? Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, members, we've got a lot of members, please look. Can you just respect the fact that I am in this chair, I'm mayor in this meeting. I'd like to get through this agenda. There's a lot to go through, and I would like to hear Councillor Newmark's speech now. And there's a lot of other people wanting to speak who have indicated to speak.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, a point of explanation.
Well,
I've just been accused of being racist. I don't understand.
I
don't understand. My entire speech is here. What have I said that's racist? I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand. I'd like an explanation.
Okay, it has to. Right, Councillor Sakdev, it has to be something that there's been. Sorry, do you want to explain for me? That'd be handy. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, item 1530.
Yeah, appreciate that. You can sit down. Why? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A member can raise a point of explanation, but it's got to be about something that they said earlier in the meeting, which has been misunderstood. Now.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was just accused of being anti-Semitic. I don't understand.
Right, okay, I've asked you to sit down. I'll read what the point of order, the personal explanation says here. A member may make a personal explanation at any time. A personal explanation may only relate to some material part of the earlier speech made by a member which may appear to have been misunderstood in the presence of the debate. The ruling of the chair on the administrabilities of the personal explanation will be final. I would like to hear the rest of the debate, and if we would like to talk about this afterwards, I'm happy to do so. But in the meantime, we've got a lot to get through tonight, and I'd like to hear Councillor Newmark's speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To be absolutely clear, and I'll repeat what I said, because I didn't accuse any individual of being anti-Semitic. I criticised the remarks that were made, which bore a complete resemblance to the classic trope set out in the Tsarist forged protocols of the
Mr.
Mayor.
I know, can we...
You are absolutely a disgrace, and you know it.
Councillor Bright, please...
And Mr. Mayor, you need to be doing better than this, sorry.
I appreciate that. Right.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Right, we're going to try again to call the meeting to order. Councillor Hodges-Jones, unless it's a point of order that's on the actual constitution.
Mr. Mayor, it's very simply. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Newmark is entitled to 15 minutes. He has already used 30 seconds of that twice, and you said he could reset the clock. When you reset the clock, can you please reset it to 14 minutes? Because otherwise, you're giving him time to repeat scurrilous, slanderous statements in this chamber.
15 minutes to do your speech, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said, I recognise anti-Semitic tropes when I hear them, and I will not be threatened or intimidated on calling them out. I am not the finance portfolio holder of this council. Councillor Shenton and his team drew up this budget. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, is this...
Again, pause the clock, please.
Looks like they're going to try and get their steps in again.
Members, we've got a lot to get through. If you'd like to leave the meeting, you're very welcome to do so. If you'd like to leave, you're very welcome to. We'll just hold the meeting for a moment, please. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I genuinely object to being called racist.
I appreciate your comments. I'm happy to hold the meeting for a moment. Whoever wishes to leave at this point in time, you're very welcome to. If members would like to leave the meeting who don't want to be here to listen to Councillor Newmark speak, they're very welcome to leave the meeting at this moment in time. Are we okay now to continue, members who are remaining? Thank you. Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the webcast and the recording of the meeting will show, I criticised a set of remarks. I made no allegations about an individual. But it's time for the posturing politics and the nasty politics of the Tory group opposite to end, and let's stick to the issues at hand, because this budget this evening is delivered against what is perhaps the most challenging financial environment in recent history, and yet it's also delivered against the backdrop of the start of what will be a long process of our new Labour government steps to stabilise and improve.
Sorry, can we stop this?
Again, yeah, we'll hold the meeting, please. Pause the meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to move motion
21, sorry, Councillor Gray, can you stand up and repeat what motion you're moving, please?
I'd like to move from the meeting, please. 21.4. Take a motion to have Councillor Morris Bright removed from this meeting.
21.4, and do I have a second?
He can't conduct himself in an orderly way that he shouldn't be in here.
1 second. Okay, Councillor Bright and other members who have just entered the chamber, just so I'm clear, I'm asking you politely, please, to return to your seats, or if you do not wish to carry on listening to Councillor Newmark's speech, to exit the chamber for this moment, please.
Can I just say, Mr. Mayor, that I've spoken with several members.
I've moved the procedural motion.
One second.
I've moved the procedural motion. And
1
it's been
second, please.
seconded.
1 second, please.
Is supporting
Right, members, can you please take your seats while I have a chat with head of the department, please? No, can you please return to your seats while I just get some advice here so we can find a way to move forward, please? That's all I'm asking. Please, kindly return to your seats while I get clarification, please, how to handle. Members, thank you for returning to your seats. I'm going to ask for an adjournment of the meeting for 5 minutes. I'd like to ask Councillor Newmark, Councillor Richards, Councillor Bright to come and meet me in the Mayor's chamber, please. Thank you. Thank you. So, yes, Councillor Bright.
Just for the sake of the members, because you did invite the 3 group leaders into your office, the deputy leader of the Labour group went in also. Councillor Nick, it's important that the members know what's going on head of legal.
Hang on, yeah, well, I'm happy to...
No, because I need to explain because what I would have said, and I will say it now, because the deputy leader of the Labour group...
Is it order on the Constitution?
Mr Mayor, yes it is.
Right, what's the
As
point?
I said,
What's
under,
the part
under,
of the
under
Constitution?
before, about 15, under 1513, to say that unless Councillor Sachdev receives a full apology, right, that and a retraction, I beg your pardon? For this particular item, we will be leaving the chamber and we will be immediately reporting Councillor Newmark for incitement. Its behaviour has been appalling, you know it, and we're not going to hang around anymore with this. He needs to be gone.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. My understanding of a personal explanation, it should actually come from the member who is making the personal explanation. So it should be Councillor Abdek Sakdev who is making that, but personal...
Explaining why he might have been
and can you please, explain why you feel that you've been misunderstood from your previous thing? That's how you do a personal explanation.
I'm
please.
completely baffled, Mr. Mayor, and I still am. Councillor Newmark repeated it twice. He didn't even apologise a second time. So I'm genuinely baffled and confused how I described anything as anti-Semitic. I've never been so offended in my entire life. I don't know what to say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so
I would like an apology, an explanation and a retraction.
okay. Right, okay, so members, I'm now going to go back to Councillor Newmark to carry on with your speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a track record of fighting anti-Semitism in politics. I will not be silenced. The record of what I said is clear.
If you'd like to pause the minutes, then we'll just
I called no individual
anti-Semitic. Councillor Newmark, if you just pause why members who wish to leave want to leave, that's fine. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm disappointed in you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
This budget is
Councillor Newmark,
delivered.
do you want to just... time is paused. Just let members
Mr.
who
Mayor,
want to leave
you
leave.
opened this meeting by saying that we should have respectful
Yes,
debate
absolutely,
in this
and none
chamber.
of you are, because every single one of you is standing up. If you'd like to
And
leave
I'm
the
very-
meeting, please leave. Thank you. Thank you. Please leave the meeting if you wish to leave. Thank you. Right, members, thank you. Yes, Councillor Abachikaza, apology.
Mr. Mayor, just to notify you that Councillor Collins wasn't feeling well, so won't be able to join us for the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Councillor Kaza. Right, okay, members, we've got a lot still to get through tonight. Quorum is, I believe, 14. It's 40% of the council, so we are still in quorum. So, Councillor Newmark, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst I gather my thoughts around the budget speech, having been accused of orchestrating the finances of the council behind closed doors, having been told by a Conservative councillor that I should throw my religion away in this chamber, and having been squared up to and had a hand laid on me by the Leader of the Opposition, you will appreciate that it will take me a moment to get back into my flow.
Councillor Newmark, if you wish to sit down as well, you're welcome. If you want that option, you can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This budget has been delivered this evening against perhaps the most challenging financial environment in recent history. Delivered against the backdrop of the start of what will be a long process of our new Labour government steps to stabilise and improve local government funding. A net national increase of £4.4 billion in core spending power. Meaningful increases to the EPR grant and a significant increase to funds provided to deliver housing and homelessness services. And critically, the last of the short-termist single-year financial settlements so loved by the previous government, moving towards 3-year settlements from 2026 to 2027 onwards. We have a government that is increasing funding to areas of deprivation, in contrast to Rishi Sunak's leaked comments during his leadership election campaign, boasting of the redirection of funds from areas like this, with wards high on the indices of multiple deprivation, to places like leafy Tunbridge Wells. All of this a welcome change from 14 years of cuts, cuts and more cuts. We heard a speech from Councillor Sachdev, highly critical of our current Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. And I, for one, think that even Rachel Reeves' worst day as Chancellor will be infinitely better than the best day of Sunak, Truss, Johnson and the clowns who crashed our economy and expect our residents to pay. An example of the lack of economic understanding on the part of the benches opposite was displayed by Councillor Hodgson-Jones, who completely misrepresented the nature of the Council's capital budget. Can you pause?
Right, thank you. Councillor Newmark, you have 10 minutes, 27 seconds still remaining on your allotted time. So, Councillor Newmark, please.
Thank you. As I said, I think even Rachel Reeves' worst day as Chancellor will be infinitely better than the best day of Sunak, Truss, Johnson and their acolytes who crashed the economy and expect our local residents to pay. An example of that lack of fiscal understanding came in Councillor Hodgson-Jones' criticism of the capital budget. I know he really does understand the fact that the capital budget is actually a 3-year capital programme. It's not a budget in the strictest sense of the word. Our capital is honest, transparent and relevant to the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And of course, as he knows, capital projects can be brought forward at any time in that 3-year cycle. They don't have to appear on the order paper or the agenda for today's meeting. Our Cabinet Member for Finance, Councillor Shenton, assisted by Matthew Bunyan and his office team, has done a really splendid job in presenting us with a balanced budget against this backdrop, a budget that maintains current service levels, a budget that improves efficiency, and a budget that enables us to press forward with our ambitious plans for the borough. No mean feat. And together with all of that, we're at the lowest increase in council tax of all the precepting authorities in this area, and we have to set that against the current rate of inflation, around 3%, making this actually a very small council tax decrease in real terms. We heard about the valuable work of the Financial Monitoring Panel, and I'd like to echo the thanks to them. And I also think it's testimony to Councillor Shenton, the work of Matthew Bunyan and his team, that over the past year, the Financial Monitoring Panel has not felt the need to raise any serious concerns with the ongoing financial management of this council, unless, of course, they were saving them all up for budget night. In further response to Councillor Sachdev's remarks on borrowing, it's worth noting, I'll actually just check this in the extra time we had, every budget that he presented to the council as the cabinet member for finance or finance portfolio holder actually raised the spectre of the need for external borrowing. And it's a matter of record that as opposition leader, I questioned him each of those times to set out the scope and the extent of those borrowing expectations, which he failed to do on each occasion. I'm also really pleased on the issue of consultation that this budget sees more involvement from local citizens than ever before. Using our Zen City AI-powered consultation system, we've seen a record level of public responses. Every single one of them has been carefully considered, scrutinised, and fed into the process that led to the tremendous budget document that we have in front of us today. We've gone from the era of the previous administration with a recurring average of, I believe, 5 or 6 responses to responses well in excess of 120 or 130 this year, an increase on last year's already record level of public responses. Now, in addition to the national economic climate, we've also had local challenges to contend with, including the Elstree Studios settlement. I'd like to thank Councillor Shenton for his kind remarks, but perhaps in contrast to some of what we've seen this evening, that really was an all-party effort. And I'm pleased to tell members that that effort didn't stop when we reached settlement with the claimants, bringing this long-standing matter to a close. I'm pleased to be able to tell members that plans are already at an advanced stage to mitigate the impact on our reserves within the next financial year. For that and many other reasons, this budget doesn't quite fit the usual template. It is surgically crafted for what will be a unique year in financial terms. It's a shame that the opposition we've heard tonight has failed to understand that. And it's a shame that they don't have the decency to act with a degree of humility and take a reasonable share of the blame for creating some of those pressures in relation to the studios, because blaming it on officers and hiding behind officers is a real low. Critically, tonight's budget's a realistic one. It's not rooted in any political ideology, nor in the do the bare minimum attitude of the previous administration. I'm under no illusion as to the scale of the challenges we face. However, this budget reflects our administration's optimism that by continuing with our collaborative working, we'll achieve impressive outcomes for local people. Now, Councillor Clapper talked about thriving high streets, and I know that's a cause she's genuinely championed over the years. But earlier, she voted against discussing even plans to deliver exactly that with the regeneration part of the forthcoming report. Now, people have mentioned the car parks in Radlett and Bushy and the charging, but they've not looked at the evidence or the data, because the reality is that use of those car parks has actually increased reasonably significantly ever since those charges were introduced. And if the outlook for Bushy High Street is so bleak, then why is it that Marks and Spencers are involved in active negotiations with us to come onto a site on that high street opposite one of those very same car parks? What we've heard this evening is Monopoly Board
politics, fixated on the free parking square. With the demands that we face, working with our external partners is crucial to the lives of residents and the success of organisations within the district. Our recently highly successful community conference underlined the extent to which those organisations and partners act as force multipliers for every penny that we spend. That's why this budget retains and galvanises our ability to provide those essential community grants. Investing in social capital brings real returns. On green bins, don't make apologies for a policy that will ensure clean air to breathe and the climate emergency being tackled for future generations. And we set those costs against the free weekly food recycling collections that will be introduced from April. On the regeneration viability concerns that were set out, clearly the previous administration and under Councillor Sakhdev's financial leadership actually never delivered any regeneration, so I can understand that they don't quite realise how the economic case works. Every regeneration proposal starts with a financial viability challenge, because if that delta wasn't there, there'd be no case for regeneration in the first place. The economic outline case that the report seeks to garner expenditure for is all about how that will be leveraged, how that delta will be breached, and how the programme will bring significant levels of new wealth, new prosperity, and new income to the borough. In a circle are internationally renowned experts in this field. It's very easy to pull a line from a report, but when you actually think about what lies behind the numbers and the need to regenerate our major town centres for the benefit of local people, I think it behooves us to properly understand the economics of regeneration. Councillor Lambert rightly raised the prospect of local government reform and the challenges it presents. But as I said earlier in Cabinet, I take a slightly different approach, which is, yes, up until now, we have had a certain view of how we need to work to protect our capital assets, and we still need to protect them, and we still need to exercise fiduciary responsibility. But our duty as councillors is to deliver the very best for those residents of Hertsmere who elected us. And if there is a danger of our reserves being used to offset the deficits of less well-managed financial councils that we might be merged with, then that may lead us to take a different approach. And that's a debate that we must have in due course. That's not part of our budgetary discussions this evening, but it is something that should be in the back of our mind. So, members, the proposed budget and medium-term financial strategy before you this evening provide a financial framework and a strategic plan for us to deliver the priorities that we've sent out. I believe that we have the financial resources, the world-class officer workforce, leadership, and critically, the joint determination to deliver these goals. So I urge you to put the dramatics and the politics aside this evening, support this budget, do the right thing for local people, and ensure that we can deliver the wealth, the prosperity, the opportunity, the healthy outcomes, and everything that our residents so deeply deserve.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to rise. To propose a motion without notice, please.
Yep.
Speak, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I rise to propose a motion without notice under item 13C, whereby the agenda is changed to allow now an essential emergency vote of no confidence in the leadership of the council, calling on Councillor Newmark to stand down with immediate effect for breaching 3.1, you must treat others with respect. 3.3, you must not do anything which may cause your authority to breach any of the equality enactments, and for his behaviour in a public meeting which was webcast, bringing this council into disrepute. I so move.
Is that motion seconded? Hang on 1 second. I'm just going to take some advice. Just bear with me 1 second. Sorry, Councillor Bright, can I just ask you which one you're calling on, please?
Councillor.
Very clear, Mr. Mayor. I've said it under 13C that we
13C, that's all I needed.
that we
Thank you.
change the agenda so we can at this moment take an emergency motion which Councillor Alexander is about to second.
So, Councillor Bright, I'm going to actually ask Head of Legal just to explain to you that this isn't a motion without notice. I'll just let him explain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, a motion under Council Procedural 13C to change the order of business presumes that you are going to require this order of business to be set aside for another order of business which is on the agenda, and not to introduce a motion which isn't on the agenda. So if you want to change the order of business to something that is on the agenda, then by all means you can propose that if it's seconded. It's a procedural motion, Mr. Mayor. It can be voted on.
Which we've done before.
So Mr. Mayor, Head of Legal, if it was to be a 13J to adjourn the debate, would that then allow us to have an emergency item of which at least 21 members are expressing deep concern at the moment and are waiting to hear if they will have a democratic opportunity to make a proclamation in relation to the leader of the council only, not the leadership, not the administration, but the leadership of the council.
No, here it is. H, the question be now.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so Mr. Mayor,
yes.
13H. That the question be.
You're working your way through the alphabet here. Sorry, 13H.
13H. That the question now be put, right? And if you want me to repeat it, I will. That the question now be put. That this council has no confidence in the leadership of Councillor Newmark, calling on him to stand down with immediate effect for breaching 3.1, you must treat others with respect. 3.3, you must not do anything which may cause your authority to breach any of the equality enacts, and by his behaviour in a public meeting being webcast, bringing this council into disrepute. 13H, I propose this question now be put. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Again, I'm going to hand over to Head Legal here.
The motion that the question now be put is to go to a substantive motion on the items that have been under debate, which is the composite of the pay policy, the revenue budget, the capital budget, and that technical one whose name I can never remember. And if that's carried, the council will proceed to vote on those budget items individually, because legally that's what we must do. That's what would happen if your motion that the question now be put is carried. But what it will not allow you to do is to introduce onto an item on the agenda which is not there, because motions without notice are about items of business that are on the agenda and in fact are under debate, and there's no basis at all to introduce another motion regarding your confidence in the leader. That is clearly a motion on notice which can be debated at a future council.
Sorry, members, does that make sense to you? Would you like him to repeat it? There is no mechanism. So basically, Head of Legal is... Sorry, Councillor Bright, go on. Is it another motion without notice? Or
no, but I can ask him. I mean, surely, this is a matter of law, but 13M can ask to not hear further a member named under Rule 20.3 or to exclude them from the meeting under Rule 20.4. So surely...
Can I deal with that one as well?
Here we go.
Someone's been named under that rule. It's where the chair has called them to order because of disruptive behaviour, and then moves a motion that they be not further heard, which if they continue to be disruptive, they can face another motion to be excluded from the meeting. So that comes from the chair. It doesn't come from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given what we've heard, I refer to item 13H of the Constitution, and I move that the motion now be put. And we move to a vote, and we move to the next item.
That's for this item, Councillor Jones. Is that seconded, please? Yeah, anyone is seconded. Councillor Crawley seconded that. So that motion is put, so to put this item to the vote, but I need that motion voted first, please. So I need to take a vote on that. Just set up the system so we can take that vote, please. Okay? So the vote will be open in a second. Just to say, this is the vote on the motion that this item now just be voted on. So this is a vote to vote on the item eventually. So yeah, on the budget item, that's correct, yeah. Okay, so, members, I know we've already had this issue with the system tonight, but I will check with the members that haven't voted because the time's lapsed. So I'll start with the list and work my way down. 1 second. Councillor Mark Amron, how do you intend to vote, please? Yes. Okay. Councillor Clarkson is not here. Councillor Alpha Collins has now left. Councillor David Lambert, how do you intend to vote, please? So that's 17. Let me just write this down 1 second. 17, yes, at the moment.
Alan's doing that too.
Okay, he's doing that for me, thank you. Councillor Alan Matthews, how do you intend to vote, please?
No.
No. Okay. Councillor Louise Nichols isn't here. Councillor Apadek Satev, please. How do you intend to vote? Yes. Sorry, I do apologise. And Councillor Meenal Satev, please. Yes. And Councillor Shah, how do you intend to vote, please? That's okay?
No.
No. Thank you. So that motion is carried. So, members, that means that the agenda item has now been put. So we'll move straight to the vote to vote on the agenda items as set out in the report. So what I'll do now, members, is I will work my way through the list. So the 4 lists here. So agenda. So please pay attention, members, because you're voting on the budget of the council for the next couple of years. Yeah. Are we all clear? So agenda item 5, decision. Sorry. I did use my vote button, yes. So agenda item 5, decision report, pay policy statement 2025 to 26. It has been moved by Councillor Shenton and it has been seconded by Councillor Chalice. That item, when the voting system's clear, will be open for vote. Please remember the system is very sensitive, so just press the button once. 1 second. I'll let you know when it's open and ready to vote. Just give us a second, please. But just press the button when it comes to it. Press the button, tap it once, and because otherwise user error is happening here tonight, isn't it, on this one? It's all right. Just let us know when you're ready, please, Alan. The item is open for voting for the budget on agenda item 5. Thank you. Right, members, that's everybody. That's been carried. That's agenda item 5. I now move on over to agenda item 6, decision report, setting the revenue budget for 2025 to 26. Councillor Shenton has moved the recommendation set out in the report and the item has been seconded by Councillor Newmark. I will let you know when that item is open for voting. Just let the system catch up. That item is now open for voting. Please, again, press the button once. Thank you. Councillor Amron, I don't know what, yeah, how do you, yeah, that's fine, how do you intend to vote? Yes, okay, that item has been carried, thank you, members. I'll now move over to agenda item 7, decision report setting the capital budget for 2024-25, 2027 to 28. The item has been moved by Councillor Shenton. Sorry, Councillor Apotek. Is it a point of order on
no,
the...
it's just really getting quite cold here.
Right, I'll deal with that in a minute. Let's do the capital budget and then we'll look at dealing with that. So I'll start again. Agenda item 7, decision report, setting the capital budget for 2024 to 25, 2027 to 28. It's been moved by Councillor Shenton and it has been seconded by Councillor Newmark. That item will be open for the vote in a second. Again, press the button once. It's open for the vote, please. Sorry. Thank you. Councillor Mark Amron, yes, I've got you. Thank you. It did go green. Just tap it once and leave it. Okay, yep, you've got it. Right, thank you. Members, that's everyone who's left in the chamber. That item has been carried. So now what I'll do is move over to agenda item 8, decision report, council tax setting and council collection fund levies 2025 to 26. Councillor Shenton has moved the recommendation and Councillor Newmark has seconded that recommendation. I'll let you know when that item is open for voting. That item is now open for voting, members. Thank you. Thank you, members. That item has been voted unanimously. Thank you. So now what we'll do is move over to agenda item 9, decision report, setting the council tax for 2025 to 26. I call upon Councillor Shenton to move the recommendation set out in the report. Thank you. You okay, Councillor Shenton? It's not snowing just yet. It's Are you ready, Councillor Shenton?
Yes, sorry.
Right, okay, members, can we please respect Councillor Shenton's now moving the recommendation for the council tax 2025 to 26, agenda item 9. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have already gone through all the reasons for voting for this report. We're probably running quite late and it's a very busy agenda, so I don't propose to speak on for ages. We have to set the budget. We have to, by law, complete this by the 11th of March, I believe. So I would just say I move the motion as in section 1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Graham Alexander, please. You want to reserve your right to speak. Thank you. Members, this matter is now open for debate. I have 6 speakers, and the proposal had 3 minutes, obviously, but it's used that. So 2 minutes each speaker at the moment. So who wishes to speak on this agenda item, please? Councillor Paul Hodgington-Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members will have heard me say this before. This is a technical item in as much as we have to set a council tax, and the council tax has to match our budget. Reluctantly, on this side of the chamber, the revenue budget has been set. Therefore, we need to set the council tax to levy that council tax to meet that budget. And therefore, I encourage all members to vote in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgington-Jones. Councillor Bright, I have you to speak. Anyone else wishing to speak after Councillor Bright?
It's been a while since I've risen to speak on an actual item on the agenda. Where are we? Oh, it's setting the council tax. Look, it's good now to be able to refocus, and we can use our other efforts outside of here, refocus now on what we're called here to do. And that is to make sure we have a budget, and that's gone through in the way that it has. But setting the council tax is important also. We don't, I think Councillor Shenton said before, it's something like 9 or 10% or something of the council tax that we collect in that actually we get. The rest gets spread out between the county, the police commissioner of the police, and then also the parish and town councils where there are. So it's probably something only in the region of about 170, 180 quid on the, sorry, pounds, straight into the vernacular. 180 quid, maybe slightly less. Okay, depending on where you live in the borough, it's not a huge amount of money. We have to remember at the end of the day, we have excellent officers providing excellent services. And under the circumstances, what we heard before with Councillor Sachdev around inflation, and that it's unfortunately going back up again, 2.99% just about washes its face and ensures that we can continue to provide the services that we need to provide so that people outside, regardless of what's gone on this evening, will consider this authority to be one that knows how to look after our people through its services. So yes, we will certainly be supporting this. Rather, we froze it 5 times under my leadership, but they were different times, and we have to be very cognizant of what we need now, and what we need now is just to ensure we can keep things ticking over. Councillor Sachdev again referred earlier on to the parlous state of some of the nature of some of our funds, and we have to that we don't drop too far down. So yes, we are content rather than happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Members, do I have anyone else wishing to speak on this? No, if not, I'll go back to Councillor Graham Alexander, please. You reserved your right.
Yeah, I think there's nothing much more to say on this, setting the council tax. I mean, everyone's got to pay council tax, and this is the levy that we're charging people, so I think it's self-evident.
Thank you, Councillor Graham Alexander. Sorry, Graham Alexander. So anyway. Members, that item will be open for the vote when I get... That's all done. Opposers vote. Oh yeah, sorry, Councillor Shenton, did you want to sum up at all? You're absolutely right. Sorry.
Very briefly, we have to do this. We have gone through the budget. We've approved the budget. We need to support the council tax rise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. That item will soon be open for the vote. So yeah, the item's open for the vote. Thank you. Is it off? Is it done? I didn't have my mic on, I do apologise, I'm telling everyone else to do that. Can I call upon Councillor Shenton to move the recommendation set out in the report for item 10? Thank you. I've got you down to move, but if Councillor Giorgio is going to move, that's fine. Councillor Giorgio, please. Thank you.
Hertsmere continues to face challenges in ensuring that we present a balanced budget, although our reserves continue to be healthy compared with most boroughs and councils in the UK. Part of doing so involves running a Treasury strategy which balances long-term risk and reward with the need to ensure the security of any investments made. The Treasury management strategy also ensures that we meet our capital plans and that the timings of our investments ensure that we have adequate ready reserves to meet our obligations. SIPFA codes also require that we receive and record a capital strategy and that we receive and approve at least 3 main Treasury reports each year, which are also brought to the Audit Committee, which I chair. UK inflation peaked at 11% in October 2023 following the Trust's Quarantine budget disaster. Despite inflation now returning to 3%, this council will continue to receive around a 5% return on investments, the majority of which are invested in other local councils and money market funds. By safely investing our reserves, we are therefore able to return 2% over the inflation rate, which alongside our capital and property investments ensure we can continue to provide more public services with the meagre 10% of council tax that we receive. Sadly, the Conservative-run County Council is currently running an enormous deficit despite receiving 80% of council tax. This meant that we have had to find creative ways to fill the holes that they've created, such as in areas as local transport. Councillor Lambert is right to remark on the decline of our use of all reserves, reserves which we used to clear up the Elstree Film Studios mess, which Hertsmere Conservatives tried to hide behind the curtain. But like the Wizard of Oz, we have lifted the curtain and kept this show on the road. Councillor Sachdev, whose performance this evening and during his role as finance portfolio holder has been less than stellar, talks about gambling with our reserves, yet he and his party were happy to gamble with the risk that Elstree Film Studios presented to this council. A gamble which his party lost and the tab for which our council has paid. Whilst Councillor Satchett was Chair of Audit, this item mysteriously was not present on the risk register, and yet under our management it has now been neutralised. Under this council, we will continue to be open and honest about the risks and ensure that we're careful in how we manage our Treasury to ensure that we can both balance our budgets and preserve the services which support the wealth of our borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. Councillor Shenton, I assume that now you're seconding this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Giorgio has put the issue very well. We have a careful Treasury strategy. We're not reckless with our money. I was almost going to say a conservative strategy, but that has other implications. The report goes into great detail about what the strategy is and how we review the strategy twice a year. I don't think I need to read out the report again, and I would recommend that we support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. This item is now open for debate. Councillor Paul Hodden-Jones, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't really have very much to say about the Treasury Management Strategy itself, because the strategy is really a continuation of the strategy that this council has had for many years of managing its Treasury in the most productive way possible to help support the revenue budget by creating revenue income from investments. But I would like to correct something that Councillor Georgiou said, which is that he suggested that inflation peaked in October 23 as a result of Liz Truss's budget. Actually, it wasn't her budget, it was Kwasi Kwarteng's budget in the autumn of 2022. That is absolute arrant nonsense. Inflation rose in 2023 as a result, and it started to rise in 2022 as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which completely disrupted energy supplies in the world and disrupted wheat supplies throughout the world. Those were the causes of inflation in the aftermath of COVID. It was nothing that was done by the UK government. Because if it was the action of the UK government, why did inflation rise throughout the world? And that is something that you cannot explain. And don't try to pin the blame for things that are outside this country's control on political figures that you don't like. It's not right. As far as the Treasury Management Strategy itself is concerned, this council, under our leadership years ago, set about moving its assets and using its reserves in terms of loans that generated higher returns than simply using the money markets. As our reserves have depleted, that option is no longer available to us in the same way, and therefore Treasury income will make less of a contribution to our revenue.
Jones. Thank you. Do I have any? Yep, Councillor Lambert, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I spoke about the revenue and capital budgets earlier, I referred to the extent of our usable reserves. It still is a concern that our usable reserves have shrunk from 62 million on the 1st of April 23 via the 1st of April 24 at 54 million, and by 31st of March 25 to a shade under 40 million pounds. This is not a good direction of travel. If we keep on this trajectory, we will use our reserves and will be borrowing and need a debt management strategy. It seems to me this council is being profligate with the money we hold for our residents. There seems to be two primary reasons for this. One is insufficient thought is being given to the justification of expenditure and whether it gives a satisfactory return in terms of financial and/or residential benefit. And secondly, an urgency to make decisions which cut corners and does not allow sufficient scrutiny by members, whether this be reports delivered late or insufficient time for reflection on potential decisions. Reserves are for considered major expenditure or emergencies, and those reserves should be husbanded. This administration seems to view any reserve as money they can spend. The more we accumulate reserves, then provided we spend wisely, we can acquire and develop assets, the more likely we are to be able to reduce the burden we place on our residents and increase their benefit. But the current direction seems to be to spend all the reserves, so by the time this administration takes over again, the council, which will be soon, we will have to rebuild reserves. Look, we have to have a treasury management policy, so I will support, but we must reserve. Yep.
Councillor Graham Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not too much to add to this report, which is largely self-explanatory, but one point I would make from my own professional experience is that it's very important to have a liquidity management plan. So it's not enough just to know how much you're going to be paying, but you also have to know the timing of those payments. And the idea is then to try to match the terms of your investments to the timing of when you have to make those outgoes. And the reason is quite straightforward, especially in times of interest rate volatility. If interest rates go up, fixed rates go up, the value of a fixed rate investment that matures sometime in the future goes down. So you're actually going to lose on that investment if interest rates go up. So really it's critical that we have a liquidity management plan in place so we know exactly when we are going to be paying out the various payments we're going to be paying out, and we match those investments accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? No. In that case, Councillor Giorgio, do you wish to sum up?
I'll keep this quite short. So Councillor Lambert's accused this council of being profligate with our reserves. The once Conservative Prime Minister once claimed that he wanted to fix the roof of the UK finances while the sun was still shining. Unfortunately, his group did not fix the roof of mounting claims against this council when his group were in charge, which is why we had to. You can't leave a gaping hole in the roof and then complain when we fix it. Therefore, I commend this Treasury report to the Council and I hope you all approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. Members, this item will be open for the vote, so that's agenda item 10, Treasury Management Strategy. So that item is now open for the vote. Thank you. Yep, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we'll now move over to agenda item 11, decision report, Regeneration.
Mr. Mayor, can I rise, please, with a notice without motion under item 13D to refer this item, substantial item 11, to the all-party member planning panel to allow this substantive matter to be fully put to members for appropriate input and scrutiny, and then to come back to full council for debate.
Thank you. And is that seconded, please? Is that seconded, please? No?
Thank you very much. I'd like to second.
Right, okay. So in that case, that will be, I'll just get the system sorted out and then that will be put to the vote. Okay, the vote to defer is live now. Refer, sorry. Thank you. Words matter. Thank you. Okay, that item is carried. So this agenda item will be deferred to the NPPF, isn't it? Yep, thank you. Right, okay. Members, I'll move over to agenda. Members, can I please have your attention so we can carry on with the items, please? Thank you. So agenda item 12, decision report, senior management restructure and management development, please. I call on Councillor Newmark to move the recommendation set out in the report. Councillor Newmark. Are you? Well, okay, apologies. Councillor Chalice, it's not on the order sheet that I have. Sorry, Councillor Chalice, I move.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to propose this, and I'm pleased to be here to propose these recommendations. But, sorry, excuse me. Before I begin, I would like to draw your attention to the update sheet, which contains recommendations from Personnel Committee held last week on the 20th of February. Specifically, please ensure that you have read 1.4 and 1.5. Sorry, carry on. Yeah. 1.5 is going to be included as 1.4 in the final report that we vote on here today. I will just turn to Mr. Patterson, just check that covers everything sufficiently to include that. Agreed?
Mr. Mayor, if I may speak.
Yeah.
Yes, we wanted to reconcile the decisions that were made by the Personnel Committee at a special meeting last Thursday. The two substantive motions, the active motions, were the approval for the proposed senior management structure, but very importantly, an additional recommendation. And so therefore, it's important that the Council considers that recommendation from Personnel Committee tonight, along with the recommendations that are on the Council report. Thank you.
Thank you. So first I'd like to thank all that have been involved in this process. It's not been straightforward, and particularly I'd like to thank Councillor Louise Nicholas, who has put a lot into this. And the action set out in this report shows steps taking action based on the findings of the recent peer review. The review identified a critical need for inward investment and to ensure our organisation remains effective, resilient and prepared for the future. The team here at Hertsmere work tirelessly to maintain high standards, but it's clear that additional support will be well received. The ever-increasing workload in local government, particularly against the backdrop of planning changes and devolution, demands that we must take decisive action now. This report does not simply reflect the observations of the peer review, it also aligns with the views and experiences of our staff. They have voiced their concerns and they have voiced their feelings, and we must listen. This is about aspiration, ensuring that officers are supported and our organisation can meet the challenges of the future. After full and thorough debates at the Personnel Committee, it was unanimously agreed that these recommendations could go forward. The consensus reflects both the necessity and the urgency of the proposed changes. Cabinet has now taken on board these recommendations, underlining our collective commitment to strengthening our organisation. Some may argue that I urge you to support these recommendations, not just for the benefit of the organisation today, but for its success and resilience in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chalice. Members, can I please keep attention, please? I'm hearing a lot of talking from this side of the room tonight. It is actually disturbing me listening to what people are saying. So can I please ask for a seconder for this agenda item, please? Thank you, Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to second this item and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. This item is now open for debate. Who wishes to speak? Councillor Selby, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having attended the personnel meeting last Thursday in relation to this item, a long and fruitful discussion was held, questioning and scrutinising whether there was a need for this new role at the Borough Council at a time when we are seeing so much uncertainty due to devolution being introduced by your Labour government. However, it is recognised there is a need for additional strategic management capacity at the Borough, and that Hertsmere currently has a leaner management structure compared to other Hertfordshire councils. Our officers at all levels work very hard for our residents, and the proposed changes will possibly go some way to managing workloads, as well as encouraging succession into senior management roles. It is clear that the senior management team have worked tirelessly over recent years, dealing with many issues, with more and more pressure on their time, with devolution and the need for a new local plan. However, the new Director of Place and Transformation role, along with the promotion of Heads of Service Plus roles to Assistant Directors, will see an additional cost to the Council of approximately £220,000. It was not clear from our papers whether the money was coming from, except from contingency funds, which made us very uncomfortable. This is not what contingency funds should be used for. However, on drilling down, and as reported in this paper, this money will come from service underspend, investment income, extended employer responsibility levy, and finally the contingency budget. It is concerning and should be noted that from financial year 26-27, this cost will be integrated into the base revenue budget and will help to increase the funding gap and ensure a balanced budget will be even more difficult to achieve. Although we're supporting this change, more checks and balances need to be put into place with the recruitment of this new director role, as was requested by the Personnel Committee. Further information will be required on an ongoing basis as to how these changes will lead to measured efficiency gains. Key performance indicators will need to be in place to evaluate the impact of this new senior management structure on service delivery, recruitment, succession planning and financial sustainability. Further, this report highlights the benefits for senior managers. It does not assess how these changes will impact middle and lower level staff.
Thank you.
Finally, I just want to say it's important we look after our staff.
Thank you very much indeed. I've already had Councillor De Chikaza, you've indicated to speak to me. Thank you. Carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, my fellow councillors, this proposal comes directly from the recommendations by the Personal Committee's meeting held on 20th of February and was highlighted as part of our recent peer review. The review recognised that the significant challenges ahead, stating, quote, the scale and complexity of the agendas the Council is facing will inevitably be challenging to navigate. And navigate them we must. Hertsmere is facing a pivotal moment and we cannot afford to stand still. When we compare ourselves to other councils of a similar size across Hertfordshire, we are operating with one of the leanest senior management teams, while other authorities' management teams go well into the double digits. We have just 9 senior leaders carrying immense responsibility. But this structure simply cannot be sustainable, and now is a time for change. We need a strong, cohesive leadership at the top, leadership that will successfully guide us through the English devolution and local government reorganisation plans, ensuring that Hertsmere's voice is heard with our interests being protected. This is not just about the challenges of today. It's about shaping the future for generations to come. Our vision is clear: a modern, forward-thinking council that delivers high-quality, efficient and cost-effective services for our residents. A council that embraces innovation, finds smarter ways of working and ensures that every pound spent delivers maximum value. The proposals before us provide structure to make this vision a reality. We have a crucial window of opportunity leading up to 2028, and we must seize it. This is our chance to build a senior team that is unified, strategic, and ready to take Hertsmere forward.
Thank you, Councillor Kaza.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Matthews, you've indicated to me that you wish to speak, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to confirm our full support to these proposals. We already know we need to increase capacity at a senior management level, and comparison with other authorities confirms that we are under-resourced. We have to meet the challenge of responding to the NPPF. We need to strengthen the focus on place and the most effective use of our assets. With the move towards unitary authorities, it is imperative to strengthen Hertsmere's position and protect our residents in any future merger. We need to address the recommendations from the peer review. Sadly, these changes aren't cheap, but we need to pay the going rate to attract a head of service of the calibre required, and we need to properly reward the responsibility levels of the 4 section heads who we risk losing to other authorities. We cannot afford to delay this action. This is a rapidly changing situation, and we are caught in a perfect storm. There is no choice but to agree these changes and ensure implementation takes place without delay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. I've now had Councillor Sullivan. You've indicated to me you wish to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was debated at length in a special personnel meeting last week, where after a robust scrutiny we arrived at the recommendations set in front of us in this report tonight. You will notice the additional recommendation of 1.5, and there is a good reason for this. It is our job to ensure there are safeguards in place and sensible oversight, especially of matters pertaining to staff, the true business need and cost-effectiveness of residents' money. It is a shame the full recommendations do not allow us to vote separately for the different roles. Our group will reluctantly be voting in favour of this item tonight, and this is in recognition of our staff who go above and beyond for service delivery in Hertsmere. At this time, we cannot support the new director role, especially after the deferment of item 11. We will support our 3 new service heads. We will support our 4 new assistant directors. We support job progression and training, and we support their dedication and fair remuneration for taking the responsibility of leading teams. Recognition costs us little. These enhanced roles will ensure our teams are supported, and I ask the question, could we go further to support our head of services by bolstering their teams and offering flexibility into our departments? It seems that money is now available for this, such as that proposed for the new director. A new director role with a large remit may add more workloads into departments beneath them, and honestly, we don't know how this new role is really going to look. What we do know is this. The recommendations in the paper now, since Personnel Committee's special meeting, will go some way to ensure transparency, ongoing reassessment at all phases, and allow this role to be recruited in the correct and proper manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Okay, Councillor Newmark, you've reserved your right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the background to this particular piece of work is that it emerges from the identification by the Local Government Association peer challenge reviewers that there was unsustainable pressure upon our most senior officers. Since then, the prospect of local government reorganisation and devolution, as we've heard, has only added to that pressure. This is one solution to the problem. It's not the only solution to the problem. It's the solution that we as a cabinet felt fitted best. There's a strategic template behind it in terms of revising the senior professional structure of the organisation to an extent that's not been done for over a decade, distinguishing between service delivery and service provision on one side of the new organisational chart and place and transformation on the other side of the organisational chart. The other thing that this does, as has been alluded to, is it creates 3 significant promotion opportunities to head of service level, ring fence to talented middle managers already within our organisation, really speaking to the imperative to create opportunities and retain our existing staff. There's been a lot of references to the personnel meeting last week. I have to say, I said at the time, I think it's one of the best meetings I've attended in nearly 10 years as a councillor. Particular thanks to Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Sachdev and Councillor Selby for their contributions. I think we came up at that meeting with the additional recommendation contained in the additional sheet, number 5, which only improves this and involves the personnel far more closely in the rollout. As I said, there's no one perfect way to deal with some of these issues, but we think after a lot of consultation with our senior staff, formal consultation process, informal consultation, advice from the LGA, advice from external HR consultants, that this is the way we want to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Chalice, you want to sum up, please?
Thank you so much. I really welcome and appreciate all the feedback from the different councillors, and especially, again, for sharing what went on at Personnel Committee last week, because it certainly has been a really important part of this process. So thank you all for your contributions to this evening's discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chalice. Members, so agenda item 12, decision report, senior management restructure, will be open for the vote any second now. So please, a member just to press the button once. And ready? It's open. That's carried unanimously. And can I just thank you whoever put this screen here? It's so much easier this time now, so thank you. Just to change that a bit. Right, okay, so moving on. Agenda item 13, decision report, procurement strategy 2025 to 2028. I call upon Councillor Shenton to move the recommendation set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The procurement strategy was last done in 2020 and has been delayed to now because of the new Procurement Act of 2023, which has just come into law. This links in with the Hertsmere's vision, and although it's one of those kind of background functions that people don't really notice, it's quite important. It helps us to open up public procurement to new entrants. It's tougher on underperforming suppliers, and it embeds transparency in our procurement process. There's a very good report at the back of this, which explains exactly what it's going to do. I won't talk on incessantly, so I would just recommend that we recommend to you to support this procurement strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Do I have a seconder, please? Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Myers, please.
Happy to second that.
You're reserving your right, I understand. Okay, thank you. This item is now open for debate. Who wishes to speak on this item? Councillor Sullivan.
Seeing as I'm the only one, thank you, Chair. I want to begin by welcoming this corporate procurement strategy. It is vital that our procurement processes remain efficient, transparent and aligned with best practices, particularly given the implementation of the new Procurement Act 2023. The emphasis on value for money, risk management and supporting small businesses and social enterprises is encouraging, and we all recognise that procurement plays a major role in ensuring that residents receive high quality services at the best possible cost. I'm also pleased to see that the recommendations made by the Personnel Review Committee, which I sit on, have been incorporated into the version before us today. We call for stronger language on the importance of potential bidders demonstrating a real commitment to net zero carbon emissions. It is right that the Council sets clear expectations on sustainability, and I welcome the fact that this has now been strengthened in the strategy. Also, social impact and value. This should be rated more highly than cost. The impact we can make through social inclusion, improvements to the environment and minimising environmental harm is vital and cannot be bought with money. While we support the principles of this strategy, it is our role as the opposition to ensure that this administration delivers on its promises. We'll be watching closely to ensure that this strategy is not just a document that gathers dust, but a framework that delivers real efficiency, genuine savings and true accountability in procurement. We need reassurance that the Council is proactive, not reactive, in dealing with legislative and market changes. And the administration must prove that it can turn these principles into practice, and we will not hesitate to call out inefficiencies or failures if they arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Do I have anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Myers, do you wish to use your... Nothing to add? Thank you. And in that case, Councillor Shenton, do you wish to sum up? No? Okay. Members, I'm just going to wait for the system to become active and we will be able to vote on agenda item 13. That's stepping back in time a bit there for a moment. Okay, it's open for the vote. Thank you, members. Councillor Oakley, do you wish to vote on this? Upper Decks, Sakdev, are you voting on this item? It's too late. Okay, so Councillor Oakley, how do you... Yes. Sakdev, yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so in that case, it's carried with the members that are in the room. Thank you. So that item is done. So agenda item 14, decision report. Proposed changes to the contract procedure rules 2025. Am I calling on Councillor Shenton to move the recommendation set out in the report? Thank you, Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This links on, obviously, from the previous item and from the new Procurement Act 2023, to bring the rules up to date, in particular to change the thresholds and change the exemptions in the CPRs. So, this really is the second half of the corporate procurement strategy. It follows on, it reflects the changes to the new Act. So I would recommend everybody to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Do I have a seconder? Sorry, Councillor Myers. Yeah, okay, thank you. This item is now open for debate. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you. As the opposition, we welcome the review and update of the contract procedure rules, ensuring that Hertsmere stays aligned with the latest procurement legislation and best practices. It is right that these rules evolve to reflect inflation, efficiency and the changing procurement landscape. That said, scrutiny remains vital. The Policy Review Committee has already examined these proposals in detail, and we trust that Cabinet and full Council has given due consideration to the implications of raising thresholds and refining exemptions. While streamlining procurement is sensible, transparency, competition and value for money must remain at the forefront. In particular, we must ensure that raising the threshold at which tendering kicks in does not disadvantage smaller local businesses and tradespeople. Our focus must be on giving as much work and support as possible to Hertsmere-based businesses, ensuring they are not disenfranchised by changes that could favour larger firms or make it harder for them to compete. The Council has a responsibility to strengthen the local economy, and procurement policies should actively encourage local enterprise participation. We will be watching closely to ensure these changes do not reduce accountability or limit opportunities for smaller businesses. The Government's Procurement Act 2023 rightly aims to improve procurement processes, and it is essential that Hertsmere's own rules do not dilute its intent. As ever, we will ensure that Hertsmere's residents and local businesses get the best possible value and opportunity from council procurements.
You're done. Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Anyone else wishing to speak? No, in that case, over the... Oh, sorry, Councillor... No. No, okay. Councillor Myers, do you wish to use your...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to urge everybody to vote for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shenton, do you wish to sum up? No. Getting through this agenda rather quicker than I'd expected now. Okay, members, agenda item 14, decision report, is now open for the vote. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Rosehill, Councillor Selby, you're still in the room. Have you voted? You're done. Right, thank you everyone. Right, that's been carried unanimously. Right, okay. Agenda item 15, decision report, appointment of independent to the Audit and Standards Committee. I call on Councillor Giorgio to, as Chair of the Audit Committee, to move the recommendation set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Colleagues, in November we agreed to create the position of an independent member of the Audit Committee. I rose to speak in favour at that meeting and repeat all those arguments I made tonight. Independent members act as critical friends and a fresh pair of eyes who will guard against stagnation and groupthink. It is not yet a legal requirement for council audit committees to have an independent member, but it is a strong recommendation from industry bodies and may become law in the future. We currently chose to create the position in our own way rather than have it done to us. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr McCartney, the nominee for this position, when he attended the civic offices for his interview with the monitoring officer and section 151 officer. I and they were impressed by his experience, knowledge and focus and urge you to approve this recommendation and welcome him onto the committee. My colleague, Councillor Linda Smith, will speak in more detail about the Standards Committee side of this report. However, for my part, I believe by approving the appointments before you tonight, we will welcome two new accomplished, dedicated and hugely knowledgeable experts into our Hertsmere family. I move the report, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. Councillor Smith, I call on you to second.
Is that one? I'm pleased to second this report, which ensures that Hertsmere continues to uphold the highest standards of governance, accountability and transparency. The role of the independent person on the Standards Committee is vital in ensuring that councillors are held to the highest ethical standards, promoting public confidence in local democracy. I'm delighted to support the appointment of Patrick Hodson, whose extensive experience in policing, strategic planning and community engagement makes him exceptionally well qualified for this position. Similarly, the independent member of the Audit Committee plays a key role in providing external expertise and ensuring the financial integrity of our council. The appointment of Tom McCartney, with his impressive background in corporate and investment banking, brings valuable insight into risk management and financial governance. These appointments are not just about fulfilling legal requirements. They strengthen our decision-making and ensure our processes remain robust, independent and fair. I also welcome the continued service of Jeff Corr, whose experience remains invaluable to the Standards Committee. I fully support these recommendations and I urge colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. This item is now open for debate. Do anyone wish to speak? Councillor Paul Morris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to extend my congratulations, pending approval of course tonight, on the recommendation of Tom McCartney as the independent member to the Audit Committee, Patrick Hodson as the independent member of the Standards Committee. I suspect following tonight he'll be kept very busy. Having attended his final interview, I am confident in the significant contribution he will make towards upholding the standards of this council and its councillors, and the re-election of Jeff Corr to continue his vital work on the Standards Committee. The contribution from all the nominees are crucial for the maintaining high standards within the council, which are more important now than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Yes, Councillor Porter-Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. it would be somewhat strange if we were to discuss appointing a new member to the Audit Committee and I didn't have anything to say about the matter, considering I've been on that committee for 18 years. The role of an independent member of the Audit Committee is there to strengthen the corporate governance. It brings additional experience. Fortunately, in this council, we've never lacked financial experience in our Audit Committee, though it has varied from time to time. But having an independent member gives it some additional thing. After all, Audit Committee is not really political. It's there to ensure that we get our accounts done properly, but the more people who actually understand accounts on that committee, the better. And therefore, I welcome this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson-Jones. Anyone else wishing to speak on this agenda item? No, in that case, Councillor Giorgio, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having studied the report, I'm confident that there will be safeguards in place to ensure that this person is truly independent, both politically and financially, of the council, any individual member and the administration. They will complete a register of interests, as we do, and will be subject to the members' code of conduct. In our meetings and elsewhere, they will be representatives of the council just like us, so this is only right. Committee members may be concerned that adding a new person will dilute their influence and importance. However, this is unfounded. Firstly, officers have chosen not to award the independent member voting rights. The number of voting members on the committee will therefore remain at its current number of 5, and there will all still be elected councillors accountable to the public. Secondly, for the reasons described earlier, the independent member will improve the quality of discussion and questionings at our meeting. Their presence will give us councillors further confidence in the decisions we come to. For all these reasons, I am happy to support this proposal and look forward to welcoming the successful candidate to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giorgio. So, members, agenda item 15, the independent member vote should be happening any second. It's open now. Thank you. You can cast your votes, please. Okay, members, that's carried with everyone that's actually in the room at the moment, so that's passed. Thank you. So we'll move over to... Members, as we're 10 minutes to 10, do members wish to carry on with the meeting till 10:30? No, I didn't say a conference break. I just want to know, I can't hear people. You need to speak up. Do you wish to carry on the meeting? Yes? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Right, members, so we'll carry on then. Agenda item 16, urgent decision exempt from call-in. Members, no urgent decisions have been taken. So we'll move then on to agenda item 17, report of the Leader of the Council. The Leader will present their report, followed by up to 5 minutes from the Deputy Leader. After that, there will be 45 minutes for the questions and answers by the Leader. Okay, that's very kind of you.
Sorry, only for this bit. We're coming back. 10 minutes, yeah? Requisition.
Right, cheers. Right, thank you. Okay. After that, so over to you, Jeremy. I think we all know how this process works by now. Councillor Newmark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It's all right.
How sweet. Well, if you want to join them, Alan, I'm sure you deserve an early night. So, in terms of the key decisions listed on the item 17 report, we've covered most of them in the agenda this evening, and of course the others are available in the archive webcasts and minutes of Cabinet meetings over the past month. This does highlight the Hertsmere local plan as one of the issues to be covered in my report this evening. And I think it's worth mentioning that in light of the decision taken by Council earlier to refer the reports on the local plan to the member planning panel, which is actually an advisory body that exists to advise the planning portfolio holder, we are left in a situation where it is going to be very difficult to fulfil the government's requirement to submit a local development scheme to the MHCLG by the deadline, which I believe is in a matter of about a fortnight's time. This obviously achieves the desire of the opposition to make this area a developer's playground with no local plan, no progress towards a local plan, and massively increases the risk and threat to our green belt. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if developers were moving forward now to accelerate speculative applications and to withdraw any extensions of time that they've given our planning department in terms of determination deadlines for existing applications in key parts of the borough. Obviously, as an administration, we will work as hard as possible with officers to look at what use of delegated responsibility might be possible. But we have to realise that there are consequences to actions, and I fear that we saw right at the beginning, at the outset of this meeting, that the opposition were particularly keen to prevent any debate on this item, because as we've seen from some of the correspondence from the opposition spokesperson over the past week or two, what they really want is a situation where there is no local plan, we have a developer's playground, and chaos ensues. Now, we can debate the rights and wrongs of an urban regeneration strategy, we can debate the rights and wrongs of a local plan timeline, we can debate the costs of doing this internally or outsourcing it, but the most important thing is to plug the gap and to plug the vacuum that's been left. And I fear that as a council this evening, with the decision to defer and refer that item, we have effectively placed ourselves in a situation where the degree of risk that we face is far more than it ever needed to be. I want to go off-piste slightly for a moment or two, and I'm hoping this item won't go on too long, so we'll all get the benefit of an early night. But I want to be very personal and very honest, as someone that's never hidden the fact that I come from a background of years of combating anti-Semitism, anti-black racism, and Islamophobia in politics. It's a cause that I wear very openly on my sleeve, and it's often the case that words spoken without any harmful intent at all. And I want to be really clear. At no point, any suggestion that Councillor Sachdev harbours an anti-Semitic bone in his body or has any harmful intent. Nevertheless, it's quite possible for people to articulate tropes and themes without necessarily having intent to harm. And as somebody that comes from that perspective, as somebody that was one of the few people to eyeball the Jeremy Corbyn wing of the Labour Party and challenge some of those tropes within my own party, the way that he opened his remarks this evening, somehow attaching me as being responsible for orchestrating the budget and everything that goes on the council and the finances, at a very deep and visceral level, certainly triggered a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. And, somebody who's lost relatives in the Holocaust, and people know that the protocols of the Elders of Zion that dealt with conspiracy theories, accusing Jewish political leaders of orchestrating events in a conspiratorial way from the background and from behind the scenes is something that very much laid the ground for the anti-Semitism of the Nazi Party during the Second World War. Perhaps I have a hyper-sensitivity to that kind of language and that kind of rhetoric. Clearly, it would have been preferable for me to have absorbed it and stepped back. And, you know, I deeply regret any harm or impact it might have had on Councillor Sachdev, but I believe I chose my words very carefully. I believe I did not accuse him individually of being an anti-Semite. I believe I focused entirely on the impact of his words. So I do offer my sincere and heartfelt apology if he feels in any way that that is the message that people took away. And I very much hope that when the webcast of this meeting is reviewed, that will become clear and that he will be able to see and hear the remarks that I have made. Often in the political arena, words can become heavily charged and take on meanings that weren't intended. But I also really extend deep and heartfelt thanks to those members of my own group and the group opposite who, you know, I believe had a perhaps visceral understanding of the impact that the accusations of orchestration of the budget had on me, and demonstrated solidarity and support. So at this point, given that my blood sugar is in stratospheric highs, I'm going to end my leader's report here, but very happy to use the time available to take any questions on anything that's come up in the context of my report, anything that's come out this evening, or anything that's bothering anybody else.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. Councillor Richards, do you wish to add anything? As the Deputy Leader, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this is a rare first time I've spoken today, so I wanted to reflect. I don't have anything prepared, but I wanted to reflect also on this evening's event. I think certainly to pick up on feelings within my group that there were, you know, I think an unnecessary escalation, and I'm heartened to hear the leader's words, and I also would heartily agree that with Councillor Sachdev, there is no harmful bone in his body. So I welcome that and hope that there's some sort of reconciliation there. On the local plan piece, now, you may have seen my demeanour change quite rapidly on conclusion of the vote. I think what we all need to reflect on is that, you know, for the last 2 issues of the local My Bushy News, we've had the very same article published by the magazine by Councillor Morris, demanding action on a timetable for a local plan for Bushy residents and Hertsmere residents. That exactly was on the table today, and it's, you know, unbelievable, unthinkable that that has now been pushed out even further. The very thing we were trying to deliver was a timetable to deliver the local plan and protect Bushy from speculative greenbelt application and look out for what's best for the rest of the borough in terms of development. So I am incredibly disillusioned. However, I'll have a good sleep tonight. I'll have a think about things, and I'm sure there's a way forward somehow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. I now call upon Councillor Bright to respond to matters raised in the Leader's report or any comments made. And you had 7 minutes, 47 seconds.
Mr. Mayor, it would be disingenuous after our group decided we felt it was inappropriate to be able to listen to the Leader of the Council following what happened earlier, and apologies for coming slightly late to the conversation, the speech from the deputy leader, it would be disingenuous now to start getting up, because it should be in response to not only what the leader may have had to say, but what he added in this one. So I think under the circumstances, we will continue to sit quietly until the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bright. Okay, I can now call upon any other members to raise questions that may have regarding the matters raised in the leader's report. Anyone have anything to say? Yep, Councillor Amron, please.
With the greatest respect...
Would you mind standing, please?
Yeah, sure, I'm
Councillor
sorry.
Amron, thank you.
With the utmost respect to Councillor Jeremy Newmark, I mean, look, you know, as a Jewish councillor myself, like yourself, I've fought, and literally fought, against anti-Semitism for most of my life since I was in my teens. I've got to be honest, I just felt, I sort of get where you were coming from, but I just felt your overreaction was just a little bit over the top. But listen, everyone, each to their own. I just hope that what the most of the Conservative group missed, what you said just a few minutes ago, you will now be kind enough to repeat to them and to Councillor Sajdev. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Amron. I'm going to take these in three, if that's okay, Councillor Newmark. Anyone else wish to speak or ask any questions of the Leader of the Council? If there's no one else, then I will ask Councillor Newmark to respond. Councillor Newmark, please respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of Councillor Richards' points on the local plan, I think we all need a good night's sleep after tonight. I think it's absolutely right. As I said, I do think that creating a further vacuum in the local plan process, creating a scenario in which it's going to be very challenging to get a local development scheme into government before the deadline in a couple of weeks' time, massively increases the risk of the area becoming a developer's playground, massively increases the risk of uncurtailed development in areas like Bushy in particular, where developers have kindly extended and re-extended termination deadlines in anticipation of this moving forward. And I do anticipate that unless we can get that LDS over the line within the next couple of weeks, that the risk to our green belt has been hugely increased. It's my own view that there are people here this evening who created the vacuum in the first place by shelving the original local plan, who voted at the beginning of the meeting not to even discuss the item at all, let alone refer it to anywhere else, and who appear to, on one hand, be setting themselves up as the protectors of the green belt, but on the other hand are fueling the anarchy and chaos that will exist and the increased risk and threat to our green belt of extending the limbo period, which could be the net result of intervention this evening. I think my own view is that we will need to work with officers to see what can be done under delegated responsibility in order to get that over the line. Councillor Amron, thank you for your openness and your remarks. You asked me to repeat what I said whilst Councillor Sajdev was out of the room, which was very much from the heart, but I will do my best to give a summary. Councillor Sajdev, what I tried to convey, and excuse me if this doesn't come out exactly as I said it before. My blood sugar's running in the high 20s at the moment, so we'll see where we get to. But look, I said that as somebody whose political background is deeply rooted in fighting anti-Semitism, anti-black racism, Islamophobia in any form, perhaps I have a heightened degree of sensitivity to certain tropes, certain formulations, and certain use of language. The notion of Jewish politicians orchestrating decision-making, particularly in relation to finance and things like budgets, is a matter of record, a trope that emanates from the Tsarist forged document known as the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which directly fed into Nazi ideology. And as somebody, you know, families, ancestors who perished in the Holocaust, it's something that plays very personally for me. I believe that I tried to choose my words carefully, Councillor Sachdev, and didn't play the man, the person, but talked about the words. I don't believe for a moment, and certainly never intended to suggest, that you have an anti-Semitic bone in your body. That should be very clear. I tried to focus on the resonance and the impact of the language you use. And I think it's quite possible for people to use language that evokes tropes and evokes classic anti-Semitic discourse without being in any way anti-Semitic themselves. You know, I sincerely apologise if the message you took away from that was that I was accusing you as an individual of being anti-Semitic in any way. I know what your values are. I've attended the event with your one of your spiritual leaders in Cambridge. I know what you stand for, and I have the deepest respect for that. And you know, I think that the words you used, the formulation you used, in the context in which you used them, triggered me, and perhaps I overreacted, but I thank those of you in the room this evening that understood the impact that that had. And you know, I said, it's not a matter of party politics for me. I stood up against those kind of tropes and that kind of language in my own party during the years and the era of Jeremy Corbyn. I stood up against it when it came from Combat 18 and the BNP in East London in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and got bottled over the head by the BNP and ended up in hospital as a consequence. So it's something that, that triggered me this evening, and I hope you take that apology in the sincere sense in which it's meant. And it certainly was not meant in any way to suggest that you, as an individual, harbour any anti-Semitic thoughts or intent. I hope, Councillor Amron, that's close enough to what I said earlier to satisfy your request.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. I now have Councillor Graves indicated to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given the recent events of today's meeting and the kind of issues around the local plan update that was meant to be given, do you believe that there's a need for this council to really closely monitor the risks to our green belt going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Newmark, considering what you just said about your blood sugar level, do you wish to take them one and one, or do you happy to do three? Yeah, okay. Councillor Cohen, please.
Thank you. I feel I have to rise because of the questions about our decision for tonight to defer the LDS, but also the regeneration item 11. As we all know, the LDS is one of the most significant decisions this council will make. The LDS sets the framework for our local plan, a policy that will determine the future of Hertsmere's communities, infrastructure and environment for the next 15 years. This is not a minor administrative matter. It's a critical decision that demands full and fair debate. Yet, despite being the largest group on this council, the only group with representatives from every area of Hertsmere, we were restricted to just 2 speakers, each limited to 2 minutes. 4 minutes in total to be able to speak on the LDS. Is that acceptable to you? We formally requested more speakers and more time, yet our request was denied. This is not democracy, which is why we asked for it to be deferred. It was and is an attempt to stifle debate and shut down proper scrutiny on an issue that will impact every resident in our borough. 4 minutes. We asked for an extension of time for this debate, more time for each speaker, and the right for unlimited speakers to participate. We were given 2 speakers, 2 minutes each. This is about fairness, transparency and democratic accountability. The people of Hertsmere deserve a fully informed and open discussion, not an artificially limited one. It was also disingenuously and unexplainably linked to Regeneration project that Councillor Satchev, in a perfectly delivered speech, explained why that was unacceptable. This is why we asked for a deferral. We asked for it to be separated. It was refused. We realise the importance to our borough of getting an LDS passed and deeply want to get a realistic and affordable one voted in as soon as possible, in as quick a time as possible, and a meeting which we will all get to speak for as long a time as possible. That is what we requested. It was refused. That's why we asked for deferral.
I think I heard one in that one. Anyone else wish to ask the leader a question? No, in that case, Councillor Newmark, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gray, in terms of the need to continually monitor the risk in terms of the threat to Greenbelt, absolutely. I think we will now have to look to take active steps to quantify and assess that risk in the light of this evening's deferment. And I think that really leads me on to Councillor Cohen's remarks. Of course, this is an important and significant decision. But you came into this meeting this evening as a group, and your initial motion without notice was not to ask for extra time on the debate, was not to use the motions available to you in which you could have done that. It was to try and prevent the debate. It was a motion to effectively remove it from the agenda, which was what you did later in the meeting. Now, I'm very careful notes of what happened at the leaders' call-over meeting on this council agenda and the mayor's briefing, and the positions taken, certainly by myself and I believe by Councillor Richards as well, could not have been clearer. There's a lot on the agenda this evening. If you want to bring a request to extend that debate, you should bring it at the meeting. That is a matter of record. You failed to do so. You know how to use the procedures of this council. You know precisely what you could have done to have asked for an extended debate, but not one of you did that. That is a matter of record, and I think that speaks for itself. Now, let me address what I think is the more interesting question, which is the link between regeneration and the local development scheme, which I think is the debate that we would have had. Look, everybody knows that, as with all central government policy changes, the new NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework, gives us a really challenging revised set of housing targets. And as with all changes in central government policy, that presents us with opportunities, and of course, it presents us with threats. Now, the report that we brought to you this evening was an integrated, holistic report about what we consider to be the best way of both managing those threats and exploiting those opportunities to benefit our local economy, to drive growth and prosperity, to improve the provision of key services, to protect the green belt, and to provide the homes that people need. It's true, we could have simply bought a generic timeline on the local plan. But my view, and I think the view of our planning portfolio holder, is that to do that would have been fundamentally dishonest. If we were bringing forward a local development scheme designed to run in tandem with a huge new regeneration initiative, it was absolutely essential that we put our cards on that table and allowed, as you say, council to exercise its democratic rights and its democratic scrutiny. So look, you know, the history is we delivered a new draft local plan in record time, 9 months from start to finish. And it was a plan that I think was reasonably popular. It was even endorsed by the major Green Belt group in the borough. The changes that I've just mentioned from central government necessitated a further revision of this, but the core principles are exactly the same. Protect as much green belt as we can by prioritising development on brownfield, grey belt and poorly performing sites. And by its very nature, regeneration clusters around brownfield and green belt sites. And I'm sure that at the appropriate moment, Councillor Oakley will speak far more eloquently and with far more planning policy knowledge than I have on how exactly that was going to be achieved. And look, ultimately, I accept in terms of the overall levels of expenditure that were being posited in that report, it's a matter of judgment. It's a matter of balancing risk. This council, I believe, has a broad consensus around the chamber that the risk of having no local plan in place is not one that we want to entertain for longer than necessary. Now, what value do you put on that risk in terms of expenditure on getting a local plan into place? How do you calculate that value and set it against a scenario in which central government has announced that they are going to introduce another set of changes to the NPPF and they are going to massively simplify the local plan process? Well, the paradigm that we put in place was a series of gateways enabling us to disburse an appropriate amount of expenditure over the first year to 18 months, to move the position forward through to a new Regulation 18 stage, and then take a step back and review what happens next. Because, as I said in an email that I think went round to all councillors, the reality is that after that point, nobody knows what the parameters of the necessary expenditure will be. It could be a lot less. It could remain the same. It could possibly increase, depending on the changes and the new requirements. But ultimately, how much you spend on putting a local plan in place is always going to be a matter of judgment. And that was the judgment we were asking this council to make this evening. Spend some money or leave a vacuum. Spend how much money or leave how much of a vacuum. And that is the kind of decision that we're elected to take. And it's the kind of decision that we shouldn't shy away from or run away from. I want to address where we were going with the regeneration proposals, because there appears to have been some confusion over the outline business case that we circulated for transparency. And I do feel that some of the comments we heard and quotes from it were very much taken out of context. But at its heart was a recipe to enable us to deliver the new housing targets in a way that benefits our urban centres, presenting a wealth of opportunity. Things like IMAX cinemas at the heart of Hertsmere, new retail and leisure offerings and youth provision in our town centre, film and TV centre, perhaps even an immersive experience, more for young people and more critical NHS infrastructure. Because done properly, that's what regeneration's about. Done properly, regeneration delivers homes for those who need it. It delivers huge social, community, health and infrastructure benefits, and it enables us to protect Greenbelt and protect against the worst excesses of overdevelopment. Now, of course, regeneration proposals are by their very nature incredibly complex, with a multitude of issues around land ownership, viability, physical, economic and social constraints, to name but a few. And the purpose of regeneration is not just to improve the built environment around us per se, but it's to understand the social, economic and cultural issues, to identify how to address and improve them through appropriate development, to add social value, community value and economic value. The whole focus of the work we've undertaken to date was to produce a strategic outline case which sits at a high level. As I said earlier, far from being worrying, a strategic outline case for regeneration needs to show that delta and that viability gap at the outset. Otherwise, where is your fundamental case for regeneration and leveraging and all of the benefit that it will produce? We're advised by our consultants at Inner Circle that the magnitude of that gap that's currently identified as strategic outline case, far from being worrying, and I quote, would be considered broadly viable on the market, even if government funding is required. And we were certainly, with the strategic outline case, developed to government Treasury templates in a position to bid to bring that government funding to the area. It needed further design work and engineering, but at its core, the answer to the question raised by Councillor Sachdev is that regeneration produces a regeneration premium, but you can't factor the regeneration premium into your strategic outline case. So a financial model was produced to bring forward more future detailed work in the form of the outline business case, and that was what we were hoping to debate and discuss this evening. So we hear what people have said about scrutiny and debate, and we will have to go away and look at ways for that to happen. But it shouldn't happen in a way that throws away the tight window of opportunity we have before regeneration to put irreversible processes in place that will deliver the kind of future that local people genuinely deserve.
Thank you, Councillor Newmark. I have two people, and now I've got three people who have indicated to speak, so we'll take them in turn. So Councillor Clapper, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't actually going to rise and speak in this debate, but I feel I must bring some clarification. You said that we didn't ask for additional time. I think you'll know from Mayor's briefing, I sat in a room with yourself, with Councillor Richards, with the Mayor, and I very clearly said this was a very big document. Okay, it was coming on budget night when we were making very difficult choices about where our resources go. You were asking us to spend £2 million plus another £200,000 on the regeneration, and we wanted additional time, additional speakers, or a separate debate. I was told categorically, no, I'm getting nods from the Mayor. Councillor Richards, do you recall that? Being in that room? Don't remember that? It's amazing, the memories. So you all categorically told me that that wasn't allowed. So please don't say that we didn't want a debate. The fact is we wanted a proper debate. We wanted to give this item proper scrutiny because we weren't just concerned about the amount of money we were being asked to spend, but we were concerned about the small amount of time that we'd had to properly scrutinise this paper. And while talking about the regeneration... Can I just point out, sorry to interrupt you, I know you're in your flow, we've got 6 minutes and then the Guillotine Act, so if you want to get a response to this, I would... And just to make it very clear, when we're talking about the regeneration, you know, you talk about Bournemouth Town Centre, this is the Elstree Way corridor, there's no mention of Potter's Bar in there at all. So this isn't really regeneration, it's political manoeuvring. When we were in power, we had a plan for regeneration of the town. We brought it forward, the document was ready to go. You've sat on it for 2 years and haven't done anything. Have I run out of time? No, you've got 30 seconds. Okay, thank you. And why are you suddenly bringing this forward? Because you're under pressure with the timelines with your failed local plan. So you're really kind of stitching us up to get us into the position where we have to take a risk here. We're talking about a risk of 80 to 100 million pounds on the line where we're allowed 2 speakers for 2 minutes, a total of 4 minutes, to be able to scrutinise such a big decision. And the real insult of this whole thing is that local government reorganisation is on the horizon, which means this council may not even exist. And we're going to put ourselves at financial risk.
Councillor Hodgson-Jones, you're next, but keep an eye on the time because you want to get response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be very long. I was just going to pick up on a couple of comments that the leader said. First of all, there's an old English saying, cart before horse. And what you were proposing earlier when you said we had delayed the thing is that regeneration should, and the strategy for regeneration, should be part of what feeds the local development strategy, the local plan. They shouldn't be bundled into the same thing, which is why we were also asking for a separation of the two items. And quite frankly, you need to decide, we need to debate and agree within this borough where we want growth and what kind of growth we want to have, and then feed that into the local plan, not rush through something and then say, and that requires a lot of expenditure on regeneration, and it's conflated into one item. One should feed the other, not be bundled together. And you promised a local plan within 6 months, 2 years ago. You should have been able to get something more sensible to put forward to us. The papers should have been ready weeks, if not months ago, and we should have had proper time to debate within the council, within the borough, what we really wanted, and then have something sensible to put forward. And that should not have been difficult, because all of the groundwork had been done years ago.
Thank you. Councillor Maxey Allen, please, if you can keep it brief.
There are a number of different strands here. A vote is a binary decision, and there are multiple paths that can lead you to a certain conclusion. But I suspect some people want a bit more time to reflect, to study the detail. But from this side, I trust their motives only as far as I can throw them. They want to wreck it so they can carry on moaning forever. We haven't had a single idea from over here for nearly 4 years about how to fix these complicated problems. My question to the leader is, from the opposition, in terms of real, sincere engagement, is it time to see the colour of their money?
Councillor Newmark, I'm going to ask you to respond. You've got 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be as brief as I can. Councillor Clapper, partial recollection. At the leaders' call over, you accepted that the budget debate should be extended, and you accepted and didn't challenge the agreement that the rest of the agenda should continue normally. At the Mayor's briefing, you made a request for an extended debate, and I was crystal clear that it should be the meeting that decides and that you should bring that request forward to the meeting. I think that you will recall that was the conversation that we had. Look, secondly, on the various local plan and regeneration related points, you can say it was rushed on one hand, and on the other hand accuse us of delaying bringing a local plan forward because we did the draft in 9 months rather than the 6 months. But that seems to me to be intellectually inconsistent. We don't have an everlasting window. The housing targets are this year, next year and the year after for the remainder of this Parliament. Our 5-year housing supply, as you know, under your leadership, was decimated to, I believe, just over a year, which means every developer appeal will go through on appeal, however hard the members of our planning committee, like Councillor Allen, work to prevent it. So excuse us if we are a little bit over-enthusiastic, a little bit rushed to plug that gap, because the net result of the actions of your opposition is simply to increase that
It's gone half
gap.
past.
Final word, we also have the threat of national government intervention without a local plan. If you want Angie Rayner to write our local plan, be my guest.
Right, thank you, members. The guillotine is now enacted. The rest of the agenda is null and void, so it's done, so it falls. So agenda item 22, I will take that, though, which is dated the next meeting, which is on the 26th of March, 2025. Thank you for your patience tonight. Thank you.